In a desolate, deep stage of the Eternal Cycle dungeon on March 26th, a distressed Kutro Shimizu declared that this was how things had to be, at least for now, as he spoke to the serene figure of Hymengriever Albion. An unseen intelligence entity detected suspicion in his words, finding the phrase, "for now, incomprehensible." An older, authoritative man then expressed his desire to discuss everything, including the need for Hymengriever's power. Suddenly, the narrative rewound, shifting back in time by one full day. Moments later, the narrative returned to the day before, March 25th, at 5 p.m., focusing on Kutro's room within the Shimizu residence. He was in a state of extreme agitation, throwing himself onto his bed and exclaiming that it was simply too much to bear. Still consumed by his outburst, he continued to yell, prompting a young woman named Fumika to burst into his room, scolding him for making so much noise that he would disturb the entire neighborhood. Startled, Kutro tried to apologize and explain his predicament, but she simply looked at him with a questioning gaze. She then asked if he had been crying, a question he quickly denied, looking flustered. He then hesitantly inquired if they had met somewhere before, a query that Fumika found utterly perplexing, wondering what kind of joke he was making. A sudden realization dawned on Kyotaro, and he gasped, recognizing her as Fumika-san. She, however, remained confused by his formal address and his pointing, sternly warning him not to mess around or point without reason, lest Big Sis become angry. He quickly apologized, acknowledging Big Sis with a nervous tone. He was startled, calling out one each on Fumika, wearing an apron and cat ear-like hair ornaments, smiled warmly, and confirmed she was indeed his beloved big sister, Kikin. He, however, seemed to be comparing their appearances, noting they looked so different, almost like ghosts, and wondered if they were truly that dissimilar. He continued to reflect, a look of surprise on his face, realizing he had no idea Fumika-san was his big sister. She, observing his reaction, gently asked if he had been crying because he thought they didn't look alike, then pointed out that they did share similarities, particularly in how their hair parted. As he grappled with his confusion, a girl with a ponytail exclaimed her envy of Kyotaro for having such a cute sister. Kyotaro, flustered, tried to correct himself, attempting different honorifics for Big Sister, Aniki, and Nessen, while Fumika, blushing, told him it was time for dinner. The other girl noted Kyotaro was acting strangely and using weird nicknames again. Soon, a hearty dinner was laid out, a delicious-looking meal. He, with sparkling eyes, expressed his gratitude for the food. He began to eat, chopsticks poised, a determined expression on his face as he dug into the meal. Meanwhile, his sister also ate, her expression serene as she enjoyed the meal, a faint sparkle around her. As they continued their meal, he suddenly asked Fumika what year it was in the imperial calendar. She, surprised by the abrupt question, informed him it was Kuriki 1189. He admitted he was bad with such details and had completely forgotten. The girl with the ponytail commented on his forgetfulness, noting it was no wonder he always forgot basic things. He then asked Fumika about her age, realizing that if it was Kuriki 1189, she wouldn't be a high school student, but a general education student. Fumika confirmed this, wondering why he was asking such formal questions. He then remembered it was for a school assignment, requiring him to detail his family structure. His sister, still eating rapidly, then realized his earlier question about the calendar year was related to his assignment. He observed her continued fast eating, wondering if she was truly that hungry. He then calculated his own age based on the year, determining he would be 14, placing him in secondary education. Fumika looked at him with growing concern, asking if he was truly all right, given he was talking about himself in such a detached way. He responded with a startled, "Why yes," as he called out, "Nesan." He found himself still pondering the current year in the imperial calendar, a detail that continued to elude his fragmented memory. Nearby, Fumika, with a bright smile, declared the day's soup exceptionally delicious, while another girl, with a high ponytail, playfully teased Kuchiro, remarking that she would only flatter him so much. She then mused that she had managed to cover up her own blunder amidst the chaos, but still found him cute. As the meal concluded, He offered to help with the dishes, a gesture that surprised the ponytail girl and earned him praise from Fumika, who affectionately patted his head, noting how much he had matured. Moments later, Fumika suddenly collapsed, clutching her chest and dismissing it as merely a cold that would take a while to pass. However, Kyuchiro's expression hardened as he realized this was no ordinary illness. If his memories served him right, this was something far more sinister. A curse. His mind then plunged into a terrifying vision. A skeletal figure, cloaked in darkness and wielding a scythe, loomed over a vulnerable Fumika. The chilling revelation echoed in his thoughts. In 3 years, Fumika Shimizu would be completely consumed by the curse, reaching an incurable state and ultimately dying. He remembered a past act he had committed to save his sister, who had grown weaker day by day. The memory of that sin splattered across his mind, a stark reminder of the fate it had led to. He knew the curse built resistance to all treatments as it progressed, and a chilling question formed in his mind. What if it was affecting him now? With a firm grip on Fumika's hand, he declared his decision, his voice filled with unwavering resolve. His eyes burned with fierce determination as he vowed to crush every last one of the absurd rules of this world and reject the true history that sought to destroy them. Later, as he watched a news report, a cheerful anchor announced clear weather for tomorrow in Sakurabana, perfect for camping with one's contract spirit. Another segment highlighted the beginner adventurer trials scheduled for April, urging quick applications, and showcased a low-ranked spirit contract set as today's top pick for aspiring adventurers. He reflected on the nature of his home, the Shimizu residence, which was part of a major residential district within what was known as Dungeon City Sakurabana. As the name implied, this city contained numerous strange spaces, labyrinths packed with resources vital for society's continued function. Beyond the dungeons, he knew this world held another crucial element, beings known as spirits. The very fabric of this world was built upon their existence, allowing people to wield supernatural abilities, almost like magic, by borrowing their power. Yet, he had not made a contract with a spirit himself. His only weapon, for now, was something else entirely. He possessed a secret, a profound knowledge of the world and the future that no one else shared. Lying in bed, he considered the possibilities for Fumika's curse. If it hadn't progressed too far, perhaps it could be cured with spirit power, or by finding a curse breaker. Another option was a universal healing potion. He believed it was possible to break the curse with such items or characters, and he could consider the locations for obtaining them. However, the problem remained: he had no connections or allies to help him. He pictured his older sister, beautiful and angelic, but the reality of his situation weighed heavily. As for searching for someone, he had no way to contact the person he sought. Furthermore, the place where a universal healing potion might be found was far too dangerous for him to venture alone. This left him with a crucial question: should he rely on the spirit's power himself? He knew that in 3 years, he would indeed possess spirit powers, but by then, he would be a mere scrub, utterly lacking the strength needed to acquire such a vital item. He sat up, then rose from his bed, his mind racing. What he truly needed was clear, but the real question was which spirit he should target. He began to list his criteria: first, a spirit strong enough to obtain a curse-breaking item, perhaps a universal healing potion; second, preferably a spirit powerful enough to heal Fumika directly; and third, something he could realistically obtain, even now. With a determined expression, he declared that he cared not for the humiliation or the shoddiness of the method. If it saved Fumika's life, he needed an overpowered, cheat-like spirit, one that even someone like him could obtain. Tricks? Cheats? He challenged the very notion, ready to face whatever it took. He paused, a knowing smirk playing on his lips as a crucial detail surfaced in his mind. Wait a second, he mused. His eyes widened with a fierce determination, recalling the world. 3 years from now, there existed an incredible spirit, one that likely met the specific conditions he needed. He remembered Fumika, how the curse had eaten away at her body, bringing her to the brink of death. The memory of her plea echoed: please offer flowers to God. He also recalled a key she had given him, a key to a certain place. Fumika, in her weakened state, had confessed that she didn't think she could continue on her own much longer. That key led to the grounds of an old, abandoned shrine, and deep within those grounds, a cheat-class spirit resided, one that, even he, with his current limitations, might be able to meet. He realized he now needed the right items and a specific strategy route which he already knew. From this point on, it was a race against time. A young man, Hyo, felt a surge of triumph. He had found a way, a theoretical possibility that, with his current knowledge and by risking his life, could succeed. He resolved to see it through no matter the cost. Yet, a flicker of doubt remained. He was a stranger to the Shizuka's siblings, and he questioned why he was going to such lengths for them. The next morning, Hyo greeted a woman, Fumika, at the entrance of a traditional home. He apologized for worrying her, assuring her he was fine, and then corrected himself, addressing her as sis. She, in turn, inquired about his health. Fumika, noticing the dark circles under his eyes, expressed concern, asking if he was all right. He admitted to staying up all night, strategizing for a game. She gently chided him, advising him to take it easy with his gaming, to which he agreed, before revealing he needed to borrow something from her. Standing before a large, veiled statue, Hyo prepared himself, declaring he would give it a try. He held a piece of paper, reciting words about a light of heaven that shines on all things, and a curtain of time without light. He understood these words were the key to moving deeper inside, originating from a relic called the Ancient Book of Transcendence, a real item he knew he couldn't obtain in his current state. Despite the uncertainty of using a mere memorized copy, Hyo cried out, pleading for his voice to be answered, for his sister to be saved. His face contorted in anguish, tears streaming down his cheeks, as he desperately sought a miracle. In response to his fervent plea, a hexagonal materialized, confirming an activation protocol. Hyo recoiled in surprise as the system announced biometric authentication complete. Beside him, a faint, ethereal image of Fumika shimmered into existence, her form translucent and ghost-like. As the ethereal form of Fumika solidified slightly, the system continued, detecting the DNA of the deceased and confirming surface reconfiguration. Hyo's body began to glow, his expression one of intense pain and shock as the transition to a four-dimensional domain initiated. At precisely 12 p.m. on March 26th, Hyo found himself transferred to the Eternal Reincarnation area. He stood amidst towering structures adorned with numerous clocks and spiral staircases, a place that defied conventional reality. He could barely believe what he was seeing, especially when he encountered a younger, joyful version of himself, who enthusiastically declared the name of this new realm, Eternal Reincarnation. He found himself in a vast, intricate structure, immediately realizing the perilous nature of this domain. A voice echoed, warning him that this place was designed to return anyone who strayed from the correct route back to the starting point. He understood that the challenge had already begun, and there was no time for celebration. The correct answer for the current map indicated the third-floor far-right door, but to complicate matters further, each area presented 12 possible choices, and there were a total of 12 such areas to navigate. Having successfully navigated to Area 2, he noted that he still had plenty of time. However, a closer look at a nearby clock revealed a crucial detail. He had to succeed 12 times in a row, and all of it had to happen within 1 hour before the hands of the clock overlapped again. The realization struck him with a jolt, causing him to curse under his breath. He cautiously peered around a corner, his eyes scanning the immediate vicinity. There he spotted a guard, an imposing figure in full armor. He considered engaging it in combat, thinking it might be his only chance to take it down, but quickly dismissed the idea. He knew he might never get another chance to meet the spirit again if he messed up here. This was his one and only shot. Observing the guard, he noticed its predictable pattern. It would always look back after every 3 steps. As the guard took its first step, then its second, and finally its third, Hyo knew his moment had arrived. Seizing the opportunity, he swiftly moved past the unsuspecting guard. He then realized that Area 2 was not just a simple path, but a complex maze, demanding that he choose the correct route each time he entered a spacious room. Sweat beaded on his brow as he desperately recalled the correct sequence. The path was left, then right, then straight down the middle. He sprinted through the corridors, his determination unwavering. He knew that after turning right twice in a row, would find the blue door ahead, leading him to the next stage. Though there wasn't much time to spare, he believed he could manage if he maintained his pace. Even with a strategy, the second part of the challenge proved tough, but he urged himself to stay calm. He paused to take a quick drink from a bottle, refreshing himself before declaring he was ready for the next area. His journey continued through a series of diverse and challenging environments, each presenting its own unique obstacles and pathways, pushing him further into the depths of the eternal reincarnation. Finally, at 12:48 p.m. on March 26th, he made it to Area 11 of Eternal Reincarnation. He checked the clock, noting with relief that he had more than 10 minutes left before the time limit expired. He couldn't believe how far he had come. There was a good reason for his obsession with the time. The weapon needed for the final stage was only obtainable the first time one stepped into this dungeon, and even then only within the brutal 1-hour rule. He held the unique dagger, its intricate design catching the light, and identified it as the sealed blade Levitine. A faint memory of a beautiful, pink-haired girl flickered in his mind, finding the weapon itself to be equally stunning. He then stood in a grand, empty hall, his gaze fixed on a distant door. A determined smirk played on his lips as he declared his eagerness to finally confront Vidifnur, the guardian of the Forbidden Zone, confident that with this blade, even the most formidable monster wouldn't stand a chance. Moments later, he found himself face to face with the colossal guardian of Area 12, Vidifnur, a towering armored entity that dwarfed him. The battle had begun, and he admitted to himself that he had grown a little too cocky. The sheer scale of Vidifnur was overwhelming. Seeing it in person, he realized it was truly immense. A wave of doubt washed over him, questioning how an infamous weakling like himself, Shimizu Kaijiro, could possibly defeat such a monstrous foe. His knees began to shake uncontrollably, a desperate urge to escape and run from the terrifying encounter consuming him, even with Levitine in hand. Kyo, battered and weary, found his thoughts drifting to his most cherished person, his sister. He recalled her kind nature, her amazing cooking, and her slight gluttony, even as a glowing manifestation of his inner self cried out from deep within, urging him to save her no matter what. Despite the overwhelming urge to flee, Kyo resolved to act, acknowledging the fear that gripped him. He knew charging Vidifnur without a strategy would be foolish, as the monster's first move was a full brute physical strike. He also realized he couldn't fly, making him vulnerable to aerial attacks. Yet he believed he knew the timing of Vidifnur's initial assault, and that he needed to run with all his might to win. As Kyo continued his desperate charge, Vidifnur unleashed its devastating power, manifesting as a blinding wave of Imperial Wrath. The Imperial Wrath was a death sentence for the unprepared, permanently draining spirit energy. Kyo collapsed, gasping, his body racked with pain as the attack consumed his vital essence. He understood that his training was useless in this battleground, and that he was already at a disadvantage, having started with no spirit energy. Yet a defiant spark ignited within him. Despite his weakened state, Kyo focused, realizing that a single, well-timed hit was all he needed. He planned to trust his memory of Vidifnur's first move and strike with the Levitine in the brief moment of opportunity it created. With a renewed surge of determination, Kyo lunged forward, his eyes wide with fierce resolve as he prepared to deliver his decisive strike. Kyo unleashed the Levitine, whose unique ability, causal severance, guaranteed that anything its blade touched, even remotely, would be cut down. He knew this was his chance to defeat Vidifnur and avoid remaining with a guttural roar. Kyo declared his absolute resolve to win, as the Levitine sliced through Vidifnur, creating a cascade of cutting effects that tore through the colossal guardian. He screamed his unwavering promise to save his sister, striking Vidifnur with immense, desperate force, determined to fulfill his vow. He, still reeling from the intense battle, found himself in a grand, ornate hall, the air shimmering with residual energy from his recent attack. He appeared to be struggling, perhaps from the strain of the imperial wrath or the power of Levitine. His hand, scarred and weary, gripped the ornate handle of a large, heavy door, attempting to open it. As he struggled with the door, a sudden, powerful presence manifested behind him. He turned, startled, to see a new figure, tall and imposing, materializing from shimmering light. The newly arrived entity was a striking woman with long, flowing blonde hair, clad in elaborate armor, and wielding a katana. She was identified as the primordial Inbringer Thymengriva Albion, and she was now engaging. Thymengriva, with a calm yet authoritative demeanor, stated that she had mostly understood the situation Kyo was in. She then directly questioned him, asking if he was the one who activated this intelligent entity. She continued, her gaze piercing, noting that his DNA matched someone confirmed dead. Yet he spoke as if he were not Kaijiro Shimizu. Furthermore, she observed that he already knew what was going to happen. She pressed him again, demanding to know his true identity. Meanwhile, in a different time and place, Kyo stood in Yoichiro Shimizu's room at the Shimizu residence. Moments before Fumika's entry, he gazed at his reflection in a mirror, contemplating the common desire to envy protagonists in games and novels. He admitted to himself that he too once wished to live in such a world, not even as a protagonist, but merely as a friend or a background character. However, the current reality was simply too much to bear. He cried out in frustration, questioning why, of all people, he had to be Kyoichiro Shimizu. The situation felt overwhelmingly unfair. Kyoichiro Shimizu, it was revealed, was a character from the romance simulation RPG, Spirit War Dungeon Magia, also known as the Damage series. He was the classic mid-boss in a tutorial infamous for always getting utterly wrecked. The stark reality of his new existence settled upon him. He was a man destined to die in every possible route, a character whose fate was sealed by the very nature of his world. He continued to grapple with the shocking, fast-talking revelations, admitting that he was once just a typical geek who loved dating sims and trashy web novels, only to wake up as this doomed loser. Thymengriva Albion, observing him intently, noted that his inside was indeed different from what she expected. Thymengriva Albion then issued a stern warning, stating that if his words were true, he should already possess the proper strategy to defeat the trial intelligence. She declared that unauthorized access had been detected, and, from that moment, he would face a trial, urging him to prepare for battle. The situation escalated rapidly, thrusting him into a consecutive boss battle, with seemingly no chance of victory. The narrative shifted to an explanation of the popular Japanese RPG franchise, the Damage series, which began with its classic installment, Spiritus Arms Battle Dungeon Magia. It detailed Kyoichiro Shimizu, a mid-boss encountered during the tutorial, who suddenly reappeared before the protagonist as they explored their first dungeon, challenging them to battle while shouting bizarre cries. He relentlessly cast status effects like sleep and defense down on the protagonist, boasting that he would finish them with his next attack, and demanding they kneel before his spirit magic. Even after immobilizing and weakening the protagonist with these effects, Kyoichiro continued to throw pathetic punches, completely ignoring the weapon in his hand, all while being relentlessly attacked by the rest of the party. His attacks were easily blocked, and he kept putting the protagonist to sleep again and again. Though Kyoichiro stubbornly repeated his pattern, he was ultimately defeated. Then, out of nowhere, the real boss, a monstrous shadowy entity, appeared, devoured him, and ended his life. This marked the end of Kyoichiro Shimizu's role in the main game. The reason Kyoichiro Shimizu attacked the protagonist was never explained in the main game, nor was it ever clarified in any official materials. Among players, he was merely regarded as a joke character, nothing but a washed-up tutorial mid-boss. He had thought that if he could do it over again, he would even dance for it, not caring what happened to him. The world of Great Spirit War Dungeon Magia was one where spirits held immense power and played a major role in everything. These spirits were divided into 7 classes, with the strongest at the pinnacle known as the Ultima class. Standing before him now was Thymengriva Albion, an Ultima-class spirit, the final embodiment of the beginning, the primordial end, and the undisputed strongest spirit in the original dungeon Magia, even stronger than the final boss. She was, in other words, the hidden final boss, a class unto herself even across the entire Dungeon Magia series. According to the Dungeon Magia producer, the Ultima spirits were still incomplete beings. It was said that only by meeting others of their kind could they awaken to become complete. This realization left him with only one thing left to do. She stood before him, radiating an aura of immense power, while he knelt on the ground, hands raised in a gesture of surrender. He declared that he held no hostility toward her, and was not her enemy. He continued to plead, explaining that he was merely a pathetic loser, who couldn't even harm a bug, and if it came to a fight, he would undoubtedly be defeated in the first move. He begged her to spare him from any trial. He further debased himself, offering to do anything she asked to prove his loyalty to the goddess, even suggesting he would gladly lick her boots if it pleased her. She remained impassive, her eyes glowing with a faint light as she dismissed his pleas as unnecessary, incorrect answers. He quickly tried to backtrack, claiming he was just kidding, but she ignored him. She then stated that the trial was unnecessary because his body bore the mark of a chosen one, bloodline of the death. He looked up, confused, questioning what she meant by chosen and bloodline. He, still bewildered, asked her to wait a second and explain what she meant by chosen one. She, however, found his language sense disastrous and deemed his intelligent entity incomprehensible. She clarified that chosen one referred to an individual of a special bloodline who possessed exclusive access rights to Ultima. She further explained that his DNA contained traces of death, and therefore her intelligent consciousness recognized him as a qualified person. He absorbed this information, a slight smile forming on his face as he remarked on the detailed answer, feeling honored despite having no prior knowledge of such a concept from his years of playing the game, damaging. As he processed this, a new thought struck him. There might still be unseen settings and hidden lore, like the fact that Kutra and Fumica were siblings, which was also news to him. Meanwhile, a faint light emanated from her, indicating suspicious behavior was detected, initiating confirmation. She then questioned if he truly didn't know everything about this world, acknowledging that he had managed to reach her domain. She observed that despite obtaining a dagger, his behavior suggested he still sought to conflict with her intelligent entity, implying he possessed something valuable enough to negotiate with. Still prostrating himself before Thymengriva Albion, he apologized profusely, begging her to hear him out. She acknowledged his apology, but found his formal language unnecessary, suggesting he speak plainly. She also noted that his intelligent intent suggested fewer words would be preferable. He, still on the ground, attempted to adjust his speech, asking if she meant even more informal, like a simple thanks. She confirmed, preferring a more casual and informal response. She acknowledged his understanding, stating that the more casual tone suited him perfectly. He, now standing, appeared flustered but accepted her terms, preparing to continue the negotiation. With a determined expression, he directly asked Thymengriva Albion to lend him her strength to protect the Shimizu siblings, declaring he didn't want them to die. He offered his knowledge and strategies of this world as a bargaining chip. She then questioned what exactly her entity would gain by making a contract with him. He looked intensely at Thymengriva Albion, sweat beading on his face, as he gathered his thoughts to articulate his crucial offer. He turned his head slightly, his gaze still fixed, as he began to speak, ready to reveal the depth of his knowledge. She explained that he knew Ultima, the hidden boss, was in an incomplete state, and became more complete by confronting another of its kind. He revealed that, having cleared the entire series, he possessed knowledge of the locations and spawn conditions for all hidden bosses. He admitted he didn't know everything, but asserted he had the knowledge to make her wish come true. A shadowy, monstrous entity appeared to be listening intently, urging him to continue. He reflected on his desperate situation, realizing these negotiations were even worse than the Guardian battle, and that if they failed, he was doomed. Despite this, he declared he didn't care what happened to him if it meant saving his sister. He then offered to help Thymengriva Albion achieve her completion, if his sister was sick. Kyoichiro Shimizu, desperate, declared he would pay any price to meet the conditions for the emergence of the Ultimas. He promised crucial information about the Ultima as a benefit for lending him power, a pact seemingly made with a shadowy entity, whose glowing eyes pierced the darkness. He understood the terms. Meanwhile, a young, angel-like entity reported that the intelligent entity had shown considerable interest in the conditions presented, though she harbored a sense of curiosity and doubt regarding the situation. Kyoichiro, still visibly distressed, exclaimed that the method of showing interest had been an utterly terrifying experience. He admitted he had been so scared he thought he would soil himself, but the angel-like entity, now fully visible with a halo, confirmed it was only a smell, and nothing had actually manifested. She then revealed a new issue had been detected, and asked if he had a question, specifically inquiring about the meaning of the doubt status. The angel-like entity, now appearing in a domestic apron, asked Kyoichiro to explain why he felt compelled to save Shimizu Fumika, stating this was a question posed by the intelligent entity. He firmly declared his intention to save her. She then challenged his reasoning, suggesting that, because I'm her little brother, would not be an acceptable answer, and further implied that if his words were true, he was merely a stranger inhabiting Kyoichiro's body. She continued, asserting that his actions, which involved risking his own life to save Fumika, could not be classified as mere biological behavior. Kyoichiro, with a determined expression, explained that the Shimizu Kyoichiro he knew was destined to die foolishly in the near future. He questioned if this was an unchangeable fate, holding up 2 fingers, indicating one was for confirmation, and then stated he could conceive of 3 possibilities. His internal thoughts revealed a shocking truth. In the main story of Danmaji, the Shimizu siblings were fated to die in every single route. He pondered that if he could manage to overturn the fate of just one of them, then perhaps he could alter his own destiny as well. The angel-like entity summarized his unspoken thoughts, suggesting he believed that saving one of them would serve as a guarantee that he could avoid his own death as well. Kyoichiro confirmed her understanding, stating that there was indeed a clear and distinct benefit for him in this endeavor. He passionately declared his love for this world, asserting that the game Danmaji had profoundly changed his life, a statement he insisted was no exaggeration. He continued, explaining that Danmaji had been his salvation during a difficult time, hailing it as the greatest gal game ever created. He felt an undeniable urge to stand up and act, especially since a certain person, Fumika, faced a predetermined tragic end. He recalled losing his parents early in his previous life, and how Fumika's homemade hamburger had moved him to tears, seeing his reincarnation and meeting his favorite character as far more than mere gratitude. He further elaborated on the nature of otaku, describing them as a passionate and unique breed willing to spend exorbitant amounts on game data and merchandise, even if others might deem it foolish. He challenged the notion that risking one's life for a hobby, especially one involving a beloved character, was wrong. The angel-like entity observed him, noting his simple yet profound dedication to a character from his favorite series, Shimizu Fumika, for whom he was willing to risk his life for a single homemade meal. The angel-like entity then challenged him, questioning if intervening in the world he loved and attempting to change its future wasn't a fundamental contradiction, an act that denied the very essence of the work itself. He appeared visibly distressed by her words. He clenched his fist in response, acknowledging her point but clarifying that his deep affection for the game did not equate to a full endorsement of its every detail. He then revealed the most poignant example, the fated death of his sister, Fumika, a truly heartbreaking event that had always made him question why she couldn't be saved. He also sensed that someone else shared this sentiment. He then presented his third and final reason. His judgment was not solely his own, but also intertwined with the will of the original inhabitant of this body. He admitted uncertainty about how much of the original Kyoichiro Shimizu remained within him, but he was certain that the profound desire to help his sister was a shared sentiment, not exclusively his. He confessed that he had initially dismissed the angel-like entity as a mere early game character, realizing now that he couldn't have reached this point through knowledge or emotion alone. He understood that the powerful voice within him, which had spurred him into action with the cry, "I want to save my sister," belonged to the original Kyoichiro. Having been reborn as Shimizu Kyoichiro, he was determined to make that shared wish a reality. With renewed conviction, he declared his absolute refusal to accept such an unfortunate fate, vowing to risk his life repeatedly if it meant saving Fumika. He then bowed deeply to the angel-like entity, pleading for her strength, acknowledging that they were now two halves of the same Kyoichiro, united in purpose. The angel-like entity acknowledged his plea with a simple "Roger that." As she spoke, a glowing, ornate blade materialized in his hands, startling him. She then stated that his resolve and will had been sufficiently demonstrated. With the pact sealed, the entity then knelt before him, stating, "I look forward to working with you, Master." A chronicler's note confirmed that this intelligent entity now acknowledged him as a provisional contractor. Moments later, the scene shifted to the Shimizu family living room on March 26, 1989. Kyoichiro and the angel entity sat across from Fumika, who seemed to be processing a new, startling reality. Fumika, still bewildered, addressed Kyoichiro, asking about the identity of the girl sitting with them. He introduced her as Miss Hemingliva Albion, but the entity quickly interjected, requesting to be called Al, and, to Fumika's shock, asked to be referred to as elder sister. Fumika, her face beaming with a joyous misunderstanding, declared that Kyoichiro had finally brought home a girlfriend, believing their parents in heaven would be pleased. He frantically tried to correct her, insisting she had it all wrong. Al, meanwhile, looked at the plate of food, dismissing the concept of parents in heaven as unscientific and unrealistic. Kyoichiro, exasperated, called out her name. Fumika, still reeling from the previous exchange, stared in disbelief as Al continued to eat, asking which of the concepts, the unrealistic one or the divine figure at the shrine they worship, was the correct one. Kyoichiro attempted to clarify the situation, explaining that while it might sound misleading, he and Al had a temporary master and slave-like servant relationship. Al, however, simply reiterated her request to be called Al. Fumika, overhearing this, became even more distressed, demanding to know what was happening and vehemently refusing to allow such a relationship. Fumika's imagination ran wild, conjuring an image of lewd relationships and rejecting the idea. Kyoichiro, in a desperate attempt to correct her, insisted she had it all wrong and that his body was still pure. He then turned to Al for confirmation, who, in a suggestive pose, affirmed her purity. Al continued to eat, her mouth full, apologizing for her speech impediment but reiterating her request to be called Al. She then asked Kyoichiro if she might be allowed to drink his fluids, referring to him as Master. Fumika, her face flushed with embarrassment and shock, covered her mouth, while Kyoichiro looked on, utterly overwhelmed by the misunderstandings. She remained in a state of shock, her mind reeling from the angel's blunt request. Kyoichiro, attempting to defuse the situation, tried to reassure her, explaining that it was merely tea. It had taken him several hours to finally convince his sister. The narrative delves into the main story of the game, focusing on Shimizu Fumika, who is depicted as Kyoichiro's sister, sitting quietly on a bunk bed. Her expression remains somber as the event she is central to is revealed, bearing the poignant title, The Last Moment with You. She is not the heroine, but a subcharacter, and the scenario is specifically designed around her. It meticulously chronicles her interactions with the protagonist until she peacefully meets her end. Despite any player's efforts, her fate is unchangeable. She is the protagonist's beloved family member, Kyoichiro, who was recently attacked by a malevolent spirit. The protagonists desperately strive to save Fumika, but their efforts are in vain. She is destined to become a sacrifice, her body consumed by a curse, leaving her in a state of unconsciousness. A small, ornate key appears, a symbolic representation of her unalterable destiny. The chronicler laments that she can no longer offer flowers to the gods. Fumika, looking distressed and surprised, insists that if a secret discussion is taking place, she should be included. She declares that being left out makes her feel lonely. Al, with a calm demeanor, apologizes to Fumika, who is now bound by chains. Kyoichiro averts his gaze, appearing uncomfortable. Al clarifies that Fumika's current predicament is unrelated to their concerns, prompting Fumika, with a shocked expression, to demand what kind of relationship they share. Fumika, still bound and visibly shaken, questions Kyoichiro directly, asking if Al's statement is true. Al then interjects, declaring that Kyoichiro is her benefactor, the one who bestowed upon her memories and the very hope to live, leaving Kyoichiro looking utterly surprised. She found herself disoriented, unable to recall her location or even her own name. A large, shadowy figure loomed over her, threatening to consume her entirely. Just as despair began to set in, a young man, Kyoichiro, appeared, offering her a piece of bread, a symbol of hope in her darkest moment. However, their brief moment of respite was shattered as a group of menacing thugs, intent on seizing her, quickly surrounded them. Kyoichiro, despite the overwhelming odds, bravely stood his ground, roaring defiance at the encroaching danger. He fought valiantly, but the sheer number of assailants proved too much. In an instant, Kyoichiro was overwhelmed, beaten to a pulp by the thugs. She watched, helpless, as her benefactor was brutally attacked, feeling a surge of intense rage. Yet, from the depths of his defeat, Kyoichiro found a hidden strength. He unleashed an unknown power, swiftly incapacitating the thugs. Though he had saved her, the ordeal left him battered and bruised, his memories of the event, including the thugs' names, hazy. He only remembered that he had been saved by a young man named Tsujio. Back in the present, Fumika, her eyes welling with tears, expressed her distress over the dramatic events Al had just recounted. She then declared her intention to take Al into her own care, asserting that Kyoichiro need not worry. Kyoichiro, leaning against Al, acknowledged that her unwavering trust in him was a blessing, but he admitted that her excessive concern was beginning to worry him. She, in turn, reassured him, addressing him as master and urging him not to fret. As they stood together, Al began to explain the deeper implications of their bond. She revealed that the relationship between Kyoichiro and herself, the one who was sacrificed, stemmed from an ancient pact, a bloodline connection that predated their current understanding. She continued, emphasizing that her words held the weight of a divine decree for them. Kyoichiro, still processing the revelation, could only utter a questioning meaning. Al then declared that she would listen to any request he made and believe anything he said. Furthermore, she harbored an unconditional affection for him. Kyoichiro, taken aback by the intensity of her words, exclaimed in surprise, while Fumika, observing the exchange, suggested they continue their private conversation. Al, with a serene expression, reassured Kyoichiro, telling him not to worry. She affirmed that she had no intention of harming his home. Al, still lying down, reaffirmed her unwavering loyalty to her master, Kyoichiro, promising to act as a faithful servant if he upheld his promise. She then considered the possibility that she might have inadvertently released a wild god, but quickly dismissed the thought, focusing instead on the immediate present. The cat-eared woman and Fumika observed her intently. She then explained to Kyoichiro that she possessed a mysterious power. Kyoichiro, standing with the cat-eared woman and Fumika, listened with a mix of curiosity and concern. He recalled the incident with the thugs, confirming that it was indeed her power that had repelled them. He then pointed out that she seemed to possess a healing ability, as she had emerged unharmed despite the danger. He remembered how Al's clothes were tattered when she returned, yet she herself bore no significant injuries. The cat-eared woman, observing the conversation, noted that the thugs were not as harmless as they might have appeared. He reflected on her return, acknowledging her strong will and the unique game knowledge she possessed. He then turned to Fumika, suggesting that while their wish might be granted, she had been overexerting herself lately. Fumika, surprised by his concern, asked if he was worried about her. He admitted he was, and gently asked her to close her eyes. Meanwhile, Al revealed her true identity as Hemingliva Albion, a transcendent god capable of manipulating time and space, though currently constrained by time itself. As Al revealed her true nature and limitations, Kyoichiro explained that he intended to use her power to return Fumika to her state before she was cursed, fully utilizing his game knowledge and the pact they shared. He urged Al to make it work. Fumika, with her eyes closed, was surrounded by multiple smaller, childlike versions of herself, all calling out to her as their sister and their only family. Kyoichiro, overcome with emotion, bowed his head deeply, pleading with the divine power, offering anything in return. Fumika, still with her eyes closed, shed a single tear. The cat-eared woman watched, her expression unreadable. Kyoichiro continued his desperate plea, begging for his family to be safe. Fumika opened her eyes, feeling incredibly light and refreshed, noting that the air tasted delicious. Kyoichiro, relieved, realized they had succeeded. He then explained that they had managed to avert a terrible fate, a curse written by a demon, by exploiting a loophole. Fumika embraced him tightly, her face full of gratitude. After the intense ordeal, Kyoichiro lay exhausted on his bed, muttering about his fatigue. A soft knock echoed from the door, followed by a voice calling out to him, addressing him as master. The cat-eared woman stood in the doorway, holding a phone, gently chiding Fumika, who was brushing her teeth in the background. She reminded her that it was proper etiquette for those who had been saved to properly receive their benefactors. Following the recovery, a small banquet was held to welcome Al. Fumika, now fully restored, ate with an astonishing appetite, consuming nearly half the food herself. Kyoichiro remarked on her voracious eating, noting that she truly was a Shimizu. Later, Kyoichiro expressed his sincere gratitude to Al for her help. She responded by stating that it was now his turn to uphold his promise, hinting at the terms of their pact. However, a significant problem loomed, drawing ever closer. Al explained that Kyoichiro's abilities as a master far exceeded those of an ordinary person from the other world. She suggested that if he truly wished to help, they should renegotiate their contract, establishing him as a cooperative partner rather than a mere benefactor. Otherwise, she warned, their current agreement would be broken. She continued, clarifying that the condition for him to avoid the fate of death that would befall them was for her to enter into a new contract with him as her master. This new pact would bind both Kyoichiro and Fumika. Then, with a stark expression, she declared, "I haven't saved you." Kyoichiro, who had been looking at a screen, turned with a look of utter bewilderment, questioning her statement. He pressed her, asking what she meant by Hemingliva Albion not having saved them, and why she claimed she hadn't saved either of them. He stared, eyes wide with disbelief, as the implications of Al's words settled upon him. "That's right," he muttered, still reeling from the revelation. She continued, explaining that her contractual obligations to him and Fumika remain valid. "And please call me Al," she added, her tone firm. He could only respond with a bewildered, "Wait a minute." He pressed her, demanding to know why Fumika had recovered if Al hadn't truly saved them. Al calmly affirmed that she had indeed stopped the curse affecting his sister. "If that's the case," he exclaimed, his frustration mounting, "then you only stopped it." Al then clarified that Kyoichiro, as a master well-versed in this world, should already understand. She sat casually, observing his reaction. She elaborated, stating that her unique ability was time manipulation and causal law alteration. He slumped forward, his mind racing. If her power could reverse time, why couldn't she undo everything completely? Was it truly impossible for her? He realized the core of the problem lay with his master status, which was causing a new issue to arise. He looked up, his face a mask of confusion, and questioned, spirit level. Al watched him, her expression unreadable. A new narrative voice interjected, introducing the world of Dungeon Magia, Spirit War. It explained that the protagonists of this conflict were spirits, and their contractors borrowed their power to fulfill their respective objectives. Two distinct figures, a male and a female spirit, were depicted, embodying this concept. The narration continued, detailing the mechanics of spirit level. It explained that, in the actual game, contractors gained points and leveled up spirits. By allocating these points, spirits unlocked their inherent power, which in turn granted status corrections, exclusive skills, and the blessings of the spirits. This entire system was collectively known as spirit level, the fundamental element of growth. He questioned if his contract was already released, seeking clarity on his situation. Al confirmed that it was, but explained that his skill time stop was currently almost unusable due to his present state. She added that releasing the contract was not an issue for her. As they stood in the patterned room, she continued to elaborate on the nature of the time stop skill. He clutched his head in despair, lamenting his own naivete. Al, meanwhile, explained that to fully unlock and utilize the skill's more practical functions, a substantial amount of experience points would be required. Al then revealed her true power as Hemingliva Albion, stating that she could easily manipulate time and alter causal laws. However, she clarified that Kyoichiro, as her contractor, did not possess the authority to wield such abilities to that extent. She further explained that, much like herself, his spirit, the game system, and its influence were all present in this world. She added that even if measures were taken, the curse itself would remain. Looking intently at Kyoichiro, she revealed that the interference from the third dimension only manifested its effects when she was connected to her contractor. Kyoichiro reacted with horror, asking if that meant the curse on his sister would be reimposed if the master died somewhere. He then questioned if his sister's curse would return if he himself perished. Meanwhile, the cat-eared woman continued to eat, seemingly unconcerned by the intense conversation. He dismissed the idea as a cruel joke, an unreasonable burden. He wondered what he should do, realizing that to survive this tutorial and avoid becoming a mere mid-boss, he must neither get too close to the main character of the game nor die. He concluded that such a path was impossible. He understood the motive behind the attack on the protagonist and his companions, explaining that it was one of his companions who had been cursed. He then declared that if he needed to borrow power, he would. He concluded that the true reason for the previous rampage was something else entirely. This was a more concrete and malicious rule, a phenomenon that accompanied the curse, and was known as the mark of the innocent. When this phenomenon manifested, he would inevitably be driven towards a path of death and destruction. He reflected on his sister, Fumika, realizing that if he were to remain weak, unable to remove the root cause of her death, she would continue to live a peaceful, ordinary life, unaware of the danger. His weakness, Al had explained, meant that if he were to kill a mid-boss, he would be forced into a contract that would endanger his family. He turned to Al, his face etched with desperation, demanding to know what he, a weak individual, was supposed to do. He pressed her further, asking about the cost to reverse time, to undo the events that had led to this predicament. Al revealed that, by rough estimate, it would require defeating at least 7 high-level demigods, or powerful dungeon bosses. He recoiled at the sheer impossibility of the task, declaring that such a feat was beyond his current level, even with all his knowledge. Al concurred, acknowledging the difficulty, with a determined clench of his fists. He declared his intention to proceed by the book, following the established rules of this world. He then considered the world's unique properties, realizing that it contained items capable of healing any wound or illness, such as a panacea or a wish-granting vessel. He knew he would eventually need to acquire such items, but for now, his only path lay in exploring the dungeons. As they stood in a room, he explained to Al that without an Adventurer's Guild card, they would be unable to enter any dungeons. She responded calmly, stating that she had been in this state since she first awoke. He looked at her, surprised by her revelation. He cried out in frustration, declaring that if he remained weak, he would surely die, and thus be unable to save his sister. Al, with a firm expression, pointed a finger at him, asserting that there was only one solution to his predicament. He simply needed to become stronger. The next day, he walked through the city streets, reflecting on the previous day's intense discussions about the Eternal Loop strategy. He realized that he had been so consumed by the information that he hadn't had the chance to truly observe the world around him. As he looked around, he noticed the cityscape bore a striking resemblance to his original world, yet its inhabitants were distinctly different, a diverse variety of beings. He finally grasped the full reality of his situation. He had truly arrived in the world of Damachi. He paused outside a barber shop, looking up at the sky, a profound realization settling upon him. He was truly in this world, a world he loved so much, and he wondered if this was where he was meant to be. He arrived, belatedly, to find Elle waiting for him. She stood with her arms crossed, a slight frown on her face, and chided him for his tardiness, addressing him as master. His attention, however, was not solely on Elle. He suddenly exclaimed, demanding to know the identity of an unseen individual, his voice filled with surprise. He continued, explaining his resolve to become a more serious version of himself, aiming to forge a slightly better future. Elle listened, her expression shifting to one of surprise, as he admitted he had initially mistaken her for an uninvited guest. The producer of the third installment of the game series, Spirit Beast Great War Dungeon Magia, explained that the battles and enemy characters were designed to be difficult yet clear. He believed that if the game was too simple, players would feel cheated. He continued, detailing that the series primarily employed turn-based battles, with each enemy character having preset action patterns. While the tutorial's boss patterns were simple, as the game progressed, these patterns would intertwine, becoming complex and dizzyingly varied. Despite the intricate design, the bear-like character playing the game expressed frustration, exclaiming that the boss characters were unfair. He felt that not knowing their next move led to instant defeat, trapping him in a cycle of despair. With the game over-displayed on his handheld console, he resolved to try again. Meanwhile, the narrative shifted to another game, Rebuild World, introducing a formidable back-alley warrior boss. This high-level threat, a female character, possessed a unique skill that allowed her to execute multiple attacks simultaneously, making her an almost immortal presence on the battlefield. This shadowy boss, bound by chains, was described as an immortal entity capable of sealing a player's actions and weakening them by 100%. Her 9 attacks made her a truly terrifying opponent, a testament to the game's challenging design. Moments later, Kyoichiro and Al stood outside a school building. He greeted an older male teacher, apologizing for any trouble he might have caused. The teacher, however, expressed concern, noting Kyoichiro's noticeably thinner physique and asking if he was truly well. The teacher then inquired if he was indeed Shimizu Ichiro, a second-year middle school student. Kyoichiro confirmed his identity, stating his age as 14. He reflected internally on how much he had grown in the few months since he began his training with Al. She clarified that the effects of blessings multiplied with natural talent, creating a significant difference in power. She then asked her master to understand, before making a profound declaration. The common understanding of a day ending after 24 hours was a misconception, as her domain controlled time and causality itself. Her domain over time and causality meant that within a specific area, a single day could be stretched to 3, 4, or even an entire week. This manipulation of time was a profound revelation. Kyoichiro, still reeling from this disclosure, stared at her with wide, disbelieving eyes. She explained that the time she had spent recovering and reconstructing herself had aged her, and she urged him to simply call her Al. He, however, could only perceive her as a malevolent entity, an absolute evil god. Al then declared that from this day forward, she would begin his training in spirit arts. She clarified that spirit arts involved discovering the spirit world through the spirit vein and using that connection. To utilize these arts, one needed power, which she referred to as astral power or AP in game terms. Her training had 2 objectives, increasing his AP recovery rate and expanding his AP capacity. She further elaborated that humans did not inherently possess a vessel to extract AP directly. Instead, they formed contracts with spirits, who then supplied them with AP. This stored AP would then be consumed when using spirit arts. Without warning, she delivered a powerful kick to Kyoichiro, simultaneously forcing a surge of spirit power into him. The impact sent him sprawling as he lay on the ground, stunned. She explained that from now on, she would continue to supply him with spirit power until his reserves were completely depleted. This process, she stated, was a repeated cycle of burden and recovery, akin to forging steel. He could only think of her as a demon. She continued, explaining that basic techniques were like building a body, while the effects of spirit arts, such as transformation or resistance, were highly scalable. However, she noted that the effects of resistance or enhancement seemed to diminish if one's own body was separated from the sensation. He struggled to comprehend her words, feeling as though his mind was being torn apart. She then posed a question, asking if, in a game, a physically specialized vanguard type could also serve as a shield or a one-hit wonder. She then emphatically stated that a spirit user or a priest could absolutely not serve as a vanguard. Kyoichiro, still looking overwhelmed, agreed with her assessment. He then muttered that solo dungeon crawling was a desperate endeavor, and even if someone accompanied him, it felt like he was being lectured by a hidden boss. He then realized that his world also contained otaku of his own preferences. He concluded that he needed a recovery type, a long-range attack type, and a close-range attack type, ideally one person for each role to ensure smooth progress with AO. He lay sprawled in the snow, utterly exhausted, while AO, seemingly unfazed, munched on an apple. She inquired about his condition, then remarked that his current level of training was insufficient to even withstand a single blow from her. He was then told by AO to wake up, a command that seemed to ignite a new resolve within him. Rising with a determined expression, he declared he would show her what he could truly do, gripping a massive wooden sword. He swung the colossal wooden sword with newfound power, demonstrating the arm reinforcement spirit art, which visibly enhanced his chest and arm muscles. AO observed his efforts, acknowledging it as a basic skill acquired early in training. He moved with incredible speed, a blur across the snowy landscape, leaving a trail of disturbed snow in his wake. AO watched, identifying his rapid movement as time acceleration. She explained that time acceleration was a unique skill, an inherent ability that allowed him to accelerate the passage of time within his own body. This meant that for every second the world experienced, his body moved 60 times faster, effectively allowing him to carve out minutes within a single moment. He launched a powerful attack with the wooden sword, but she effortlessly dodged his strike, remarking that it would have been a good blow had she not avoided it. He continued his assault, kicking up plumes of snow with each rapid movement. He anticipated her next move, believing he had finally cornered her. With a determined lunge, he attempted to grab her, his hand reaching out. She easily evaded his grasp, her movements fluid and precise, stating simply that he was too naive. The force of his missed lunge sent him flying backward through the air. He crashed hard into the snow, leaving a deep impression, and cried out in frustration, calling her a beast for her relentless skill. He, still frustrated and defeated, wondered aloud how she managed to avoid him, especially when he had attacked her directly from behind. AO remained in the distance, observing him. As he listened, AO continued, stating that his body had developed significantly, and his current master, referring to herself, was a muscle head. She elaborated that manipulating spirit arts and improving spiritual power was a challenge, and that arm reinforcement, leg reinforcement, and time acceleration were techniques that consumed a lot of energy but were sufficiently applicable. She then mentioned a hidden counterattack, levitine. She then challenged him, asking if he intended to raise or lower it, implying a test. AO remarked that his growth as a master was truly remarkable, and questioned if he genuinely intended to stop her or use levitine. AO maintained a serious expression, still holding her food, while he reflected on her words. He realized that if he didn't believe in himself, he would remain weak and fragile. He pondered if she truly thought he lacked talent, and was merely trying to push him further. She then offered a comforting reassurance, telling him it was natural to have some self-doubt. Kneeling, he quietly thanked her. AO then informed him he was still immature, and asked him to rely on her for one more thing. He looked surprised, thinking that his master was quite the perfectionist. He was later seen walking away, still pondering Ao's words, wondering if she was quite the scatterbrain. Kumiko, with a gentle expression, realized that Kyoichiro had been working hard for her sake, to become an adventurer. She resolved that she gently touched his face, asking him to promise to return safely. He responded with a soft affirmation. Ao, ever present, reminded him that she would handle things on her end. Kyoichiro, with a confident smile, bid them farewell, ready to depart. The world of dungeons, as Kyoichiro understood, was a stage for battles and drama, a dreamland where adventurers sought glory. He knew that the treasures and monsters within varied greatly, depending on the dungeon's nature. The true essence of dungeon exploration, he mused, lay in the spirit stones, which were the ultimate energy source. As Kyoichiro walked through the city, he reflected on the nature of spirit stones. They could be converted into any form of energy, far surpassing the efficiency of fossil fuels, and had virtually no negative impact on the environment, making them an exceptionally superior energy source. Kyoichiro considered the world's unique setup, where the population was indeed controlled by spiritual power. This, he realized, was the dungeon world setting, and those who were needed within it were the adventurers. He then stepped through a doorway, entering a grand building. He arrived at the dungeon city Sakurika, specifically dungeon number 27, known as Moon Cocoon. A digital display informed him that the adventurer qualification exam for the day would be held on the 15th floor. Ao, floating beside him, remarked that it had been a while since she had seen a god or a shrine maiden. As the elevator ascended, Kyoichiro heard Ao's voice, asking if he had called her. He quickly denied it, realizing she was communicating telepathically. She explained that while they were separated, their conversation could not be heard by others, as it was a special privilege only available to contractors and their spirits. Ao further clarified that she, as Hemingliva Albion, could not directly enter the dungeon itself. This was due to the principle of inviolability of the otherworld, a fundamental rule preventing spirit entities from directly manifesting in the physical world. Kyoichiro listened intently, understanding that this rule was also why the dungeon's god, Ultima, was one of its pillars. He finally reached the reception area for the exam. Approaching the desk, Kyoichiro declared his name and examinee number. Examinee number 267, Kyoichiro Shimizu, and respectfully stated, "I look forward to working with you today." He stood before the registration desk, his documents confirming his identity as Shimizu Kyoichiro, number 26. The receptionist, reviewing his application, expressed surprise at his stated age of 15 and his current enrollment at Sakurika Second Middle School. He confirmed the details. His presence drew the attention of other adventurers waiting nearby. They openly questioned his age, finding it hard to believe someone with his build could still be a middle school student, and even commented on the design on his clothing, wondering if it depicted an old man's face. The whispers of the crowd caused him to blush deeply, his face turning crimson. He internally acknowledged his unusual appearance, feeling like an alien species, and wondered if his rising anger was the cause of his flushed cheeks. The receptionist, observing his reaction, noted his shyness and his apparent discomfort in crowds. Regaining his composure, he explained his immediate need to pass the exam and become an adventurer. However, he clarified that this was not his sole objective, hinting at a deeper, more specific reason for choosing this particular exam at this moment. He paused, his expression serious, as Al's faint voice echoed in his mind, reminding him of his earlier statement about being 15. She smiled faintly, pondering their ages, wondering if they were the same, or if she was merely a year older, though she admitted her appearance didn't suggest it. Meanwhile, a new female adventurer, vibrant and full of energy, expressed her excitement, remarking on the diverse group of aspiring adventurers gathering and eagerly anticipating the start of the exam. His gaze, however, was drawn to her. His eyes widened in sudden recognition, a jolt of surprise running through him. He uttered a surprised exclamation as she turned, her eyes meeting his, and she wondered aloud if he was someone she knew. Other adventurers nearby noticed the exchange, commenting on the presence of a girl among the applicants. She stood resolute, her gaze unwavering, even as the ominous presence of a Rakshasa, a formidable boss appearing without a trace, loomed directly behind her. Meanwhile, Kyoichiro, his expression grave, pondered the unfolding events, realizing that destiny itself awaited him further down this path. His thoughts converged as he found himself face to face with Aoba, a young woman for whom a cruel destiny had also been set in motion. Kyoichiro Shimizu carried Al on his back, walking through a city street. The chronicler noted it was the 1189th imperial year, during a training period, and they were returning home while carrying weights. Al reminded him that if he wanted to defeat the boss as she had advised, he absolutely needed to train both offensive and defensive sword techniques. She then asked if he had anyone in mind for a master. He considered the possibility of contacting the original game's protagonists. Al questioned if heroines, for example, were guaranteed to have a certain level of strength. He looked troubled by her inquiry, his expression tightening. He continued to carry her, pondering that while he could think of some candidates based on his game knowledge, the current conditions for them to become allies were quite strict. He walked past a crosswalk, thinking that inviting a sword-type heroine to join his party now, and getting along with her, would require considerable effort. Al declared that he did not want to steal the destiny of the game's protagonist and heroine. He agreed with her, acknowledging that he was just Al. He suddenly shouted, proclaiming himself a gouged player. He explained that while he wanted to change his sister's and his own miserable destiny, he did not wish to replace the game's protagonist. He simply wanted to see the protagonist and heroine happy together. Al observed the intensity of his desire. She noted that he had not given up on his goal. He responded that, if possible, they should actively recruit allies. However, he must also consider the master's thoughts. He concluded that it would be fine as long as the recruited individuals were not the protagonist or heroine. He explained that if she was a sword-type character, she must possess a unique network of family or acquaintances. The dark-haired girl listened intently to his words. He continued, stating that if he found candidates, he would thoroughly investigate their connections. This, he declared, was the fundamental method for gathering iron souls, his master's way. Al walked ahead, listening. Moments later, he carried Al on his back through the bustling city. He informed her that he had found one candidate. She, surprised, asked if it was a family member. As they continued, Aoba, the cat-eared woman, observed them from a distance, remarking on their apparent closeness. He reflected on the current date, Imperial Year 1190, April 1st, at the 27th Dungeon Portal Gate, in Sakuraji City. His thoughts drifted to his sister, Fumika, one of the heroines of the Dungeon Master game. He realized that to obtain a license, he would need to change his name to Haruka, noting that the main game would begin 2 years from this point. He explained to Aoba that the events of this trial would carry over into the main story, but in a detrimental way. He continued his conversation with Aoba, stating that he had always believed his sister would be present. He admitted his surprise at her current state, as it was the first time he had witnessed her in such a condition. Aoba listened, then responded with a questioning sound. His attention suddenly caught. He spotted Fumika in a bustling crowd, walking away from him. He called out to her, his voice filled with surprise. He then explained to Al that the portal gate was the real thing, capable of instantly transporting them to another dimension. He described it as a mysterious gate that connected the real world to a different one. Al listened intently. A vast, high-ceilinged hall, adorned with intricate, almost circuit-like patterns, buzzed with the murmur of a large gathering. Numerous individuals, many appearing to be adventurers, stood assembled, their attention drawn forward. Among them, Kyoichiro reflected on the portal gate, noting that while it felt like a teleportation wheel, it was more akin to a simple door. As he spoke, a female official began to address the assembled crowd, her voice carrying through the hall. She, the official, began to outline the trial's objectives, explaining that participants would dungeon through the portal gate to engage in exploration and combat, earning points along the way. She emphasized that there were 2 primary methods for acquiring these points within the 90-minute time limit. The official continued, clarifying that one method involved defeating monsters within the dungeon to obtain spirit stones, whose value and quantity varied. These stones would then be converted into points. She sternly warned against any illicit exchanges of spirit stones among participants, stating that such actions were strictly forbidden and would result in immediate disqualification. Her expression hardened as she delivered a final, emphatic warning, urging everyone not to entertain any strange or forbidden ideas. The assembled crowd listened intently, their collective gaze fixed on the officials standing before them, absorbing every word of the trial's regulations. Kyoichiro, observing the proceedings, found the minimum penalties for rule-breaking to be surprisingly lenient. He recalled a master who had illegally brought a leviathan into a previous trial, noting that such actions were truly unconventional and that the rules for strengthening combat power were often ambiguous. The official then elaborated on the point system, explaining that if a single person collected 100 points, they would receive the full amount. However, if two people cooperated, the 100 points would be split with 50 points allocated to each. She clarified that the evaluation points would fluctuate based on the level of cooperation among participants. She continued, stating that while solo hunting might yield more points, it also demanded significantly more effort. She then moved on to explain the second method for acquiring points, acknowledging its higher difficulty due to the sheer number of participants. The official, now joined by a male colleague, concluded the explanation, reiterating that the trial was fundamentally a test of combatability. She issued a final warning against illegal activities within the dungeon, encouraging those with confidence to challenge it. With the main explanation complete, she urged anyone with remaining questions to ask them quickly. She acknowledged his questions, stating that the second point he raised concerned the operational side's alert status during the actual trial. She asked if he could elaborate within a reasonable scope. She explained that the trial was designed solely for the first floor, prioritizing safety due to the ease of return. Furthermore, she and her subordinate would serve as supervisors. As she spoke, a male official stood beside her, also serving as a supervisor. He possessed a complete map of the first 24 floors, available for 24 hours. Kyoichiro, however, seemed troubled by her stern expression, while Aoba, the cat-eared woman, also appeared concerned. Kyoichiro then inquired about the Ring of Transference, an item that could instantly transport one between worlds. He knew it was a disposable item, but wondered why it wasn't prepared for this trial. She confirmed it was not provided for this trial, implying it was too valuable. He pressed further, asking if his understanding was correct. Aoba, overhearing, wondered if Kyoichiro was thinking about the blood-stained Rakshasa. He admitted his unease, stating that if the Rakshasa appeared on the first floor, it would be a grave problem. He believed that many lives would be lost in the trial if things continued as they were, with 2 brave participants already dead. He thought to himself that even if he wanted to increase security, it would be futile. Meanwhile, in a different setting, Al sat eating with the cat-eared woman. Al explained that the master's memories were fragmented, only at a level where they could be described in 2 words. She lamented that there was no one to mourn or despair, only someone who did nothing. The cat-eared woman suggested that if that was the case, they should just do their best. Back at the trial, the female receptionist announced that the portal gate was opening. All participants had gathered at the entrance to the first floor, and the trial was about to begin. Before entering, they were instructed to apply for and receive their weapons from the container. Kyoichiro, now equipped with a large, heavy sword, found himself struggling with its weight. He wondered what awaited him, noting how incredibly heavy the weapon felt in his hands. He gripped the massive sword, its weight a constant challenge, but his resolve burned bright. He would clear this dungeon no matter the obstacle. Standing before the grand entrance of the Sakura City dungeon, known as the Moon's Embrace, he reflected on the year that had passed since his arrival in this world. He had been unable to access the main content until now, but that was about to change. He declared his presence, ready to face what lay within. He boasted about clearing the first dungeon quickly, but the female official, observing him with a stern gaze, warned him against such reckless behavior. She reminded him that many eyes were watching and advised him to proceed with caution, making good use of his allotted time. The official then formally declared the commencement of the adventurer's trial, announcing a strict 90-minute time limit. She urged all participants to strive with all their might, leaving no room for regret, before giving the final command to begin. He acknowledged the command, preparing himself to move forward into the unknown. As the trial officially began, other adventurers surged forward, disappearing into the shimmering portal. Among them, Aoba moved with remarkable grace and speed, a confident smile gracing her lips as she too vanished into the dungeon. Still grappling with the immense weight of his sword, he watched Aoba's swift departure, surprised by her agility and the ease with which she entered the portal. Moments later, from within the dungeon's shimmering depths, Aoba looked back, her voice echoing as she called out to him. She smiled brightly, her expression clearly urging him to hurry and join her. He remained at the entrance, observing her, a wry realization dawning upon him that he was being completely played. He found himself still pondering Aoba's earlier words, wondering if his appearance had made him seem like someone seeking help, or if she simply recognized his qualifications. Aoba, meanwhile, continued to observe him with a knowing gaze. His thoughts were interrupted by her next taunt, a sharp accusation that he was a creepy stalker and a bastard. He bristled, recognizing the line of teasing behavior, yet it still struck a nerve. As he finally stepped into the dungeon's shimmering, crystalline depths, Aoba's voice echoed from further within, asking if he truly intended to die a normal death, and if he would stop chasing her now. He ignored her, his focus shifting to the dungeon itself. He knew this place was generally considered a beginner's trial, but his master had warned him that the dungeon's true nature was far more terrifying, capable of rapidly escalating emotions and causing mental collapse. Aoba, still ahead, then questioned his master's kindness, wondering if such a function even existed. She suggested that perhaps he shouldn't expect too much. Suddenly, both Kyoichiro and Aoba gasped, their expressions shifting from banter to alarm as something unexpected occurred. As Aoba continued to bound away, looking back with a slight smirk, Kyoichiro realized the full extent of the situation. The shadowy enemies were confirmed, and there were 5 of them. He cursed, muttering that this timing was the absolute worst, especially with customers like these. In the dungeons, enemies known as essences appear. The main body logs into this narrow world to create an avatar, a separate entity. This avatar is the small, round creature, while the human figure represents the player's true self. However, these essences do not face a life-threatening crisis upon defeat. Instead, they consume something. The small avatar, seemingly pondering this, holds a book. This consumption, in the real world, is equivalent to several months' worth of salary. The stronger an essence becomes, the more spirit stones it consumes, establishing a system for there the avatar clutches a small bag, contemplating the cost. The player, now visibly distressed, learns that the dungeon's management collects the equivalent of half a level's worth of pain. This system is designed to return the adventurer's share back to the management side. The avatar, wide-eyed, grasps the grim reality of this arrangement. As the implications sink in, the avatar realizes that the very existence of essences is intricately linked to a specific race, a revelation that further deepens the mystery. The true reason essences appear in dungeons is for their own growth. While the people of this world seek dungeons for resources and items, this objective stands in direct opposition to the essence's inherent purpose. The avatar, having absorbed this knowledge, levels up, understanding that the ultimate goal is to ascend to the pinnacle, to become a higher dimensional being, a pursuit considered the supreme joy and highest priority. Essences are powerful beings, their existence widely acknowledged. They possess an inherent method to discover their own worth and require no external trials. This is the very nature of their creation. Meanwhile, a determined swordsman stands poised for action, while a mysterious woman with an obscured face is revealed. The narrator emphasizes that essences possess a unique, inherent background, existing as unchanging, superclass entities. The swordsman, now in the midst of combat, strikes the ground with force, sending ripples across the stone floor. Around him, several shadowy, amorphous figures emerge, preparing to engage. The shadowy figures reveal their true forms, a grotesque goblin and a snarling kobold. He found himself surrounded by a horde of grotesque goblins wielding crude blades and agile kobolds with bows, their numbers far exceeding his own. As the creatures advanced, he activated a skill, a glowing symbol appearing on his hand, and internally noted that these enemies, despite their ferocity, were merely experience points to be gained. He wondered if they would simply let him pass if he asked, but quickly dismissed the thought, realizing they were merely delicious prey. With a surge of energy, he activated leg strength enhancement, feeling his body grow lighter and faster. He knew that even a single hit could be fatal, making escape impossible. Yet he was determined to overcome this challenge. He also reflected that he needed to surpass the mystery surrounding a certain woman. His thoughts briefly drifted to the mysterious woman, who had once advised him that there was no escape from the dungeon once one was trapped. He acknowledged her words with a resolute, "Okay," and, with a fierce battle cry, launched himself into the fray. He moved with incredible speed, a blur of motion as he deftly dodged the incoming arrows from the clumsy swings of the goblin's blades, weaving through their attacks. With a powerful parry, he deflected a kobold strike, then swiftly brought his great sword down, cleaving through a goblin. The creature dissolved into shimmering particles of light, leaving behind a small, glowing spirit stone in its wake. More goblins shrieked and lunged, but he was too fast, leaving only afterimages as he moved. Another swift strike, and a second goblin shattered into light, adding to the growing collection of spirit stones. He stood amidst the remnants of his foes, the ground littered with the fading light of shattered goblins and kobolds, a testament to his overwhelming power. As he bent to collect a newly formed spirit stone, a small, white, blob-like creature with large eyes materialized in his hand, asking if he was its master. He mused that these enemies, though weak, served as a decent warm-up, and that he should not hesitate to defeat them. With the spirit avatar now accompanying him, he continued his journey through the dungeon, his resolve firm. He thought of the mysterious woman once more, vowing to absolutely catch up the spirit avatar, in its small chibi form, accused him of being a stalker, stating that if one were to only look at his face, he would appear completely like one. It then dismissively told him to be quiet. He pondered how the mysterious woman could run on walls like a ninja, wondering if such a feat was truly impossible for an ordinary spirit user. He then declared that he would pursue her using conventional methods, as he was a sage. This ability, known as force field formation, was a rudimentary spirit art. It allowed one to support their entire body with a single fingertip, creating a force field at the point of impact, thus enabling wall running. He realized that her wall running was likely an application of this very force field formation. He reflected that if he were a mere small fry, he might have attempted a reckless battle, but now he was certain of his path. Meanwhile, the spirit avatar explained that scaling such high walls required a certain level of proficiency, as it was a skill befitting a master. It then pointed out that the master was being trained, and it too was a trainer, a muscle gorilla. A different voice, presumably the swordsman's, questioned who was a gorilla, while the avatar simply stated, "Just a little more to go." The swordsman, now focused, considered how to proceed from this point, intending to use the lessons learned from his previous encounters as material for future reflection. He then addressed the avatar, asking if the mysterious woman was nowhere to be found, as expected. He concluded that he had two plans. He illustrated his first plan, either to search frantically or to ask around for her whereabouts. He mused that both options had their merits and demerits, and he needed to consider them carefully. The swordsman's chibi form, alongside the avatar, explained the advantage of this frantically approach. If luck was on their side, they would find her quickly, naturally reducing resource consumption. The narration clarified that, in this context, resources primarily referred to stamina, magic, and time. He then outlined the demerit of that approach. If luck was bad, it could lead to a prolonged chase, wasting extra time and effort. He questioned if this meant the element of gambling was strong, and then dismissed the idea, stating it wasn't quite that simple, as another examinee was also present. He mused that the mysterious woman was not simply wandering aimlessly. She was undoubtedly heading towards a specific, final destination. He believed he had a clue regarding her ultimate whereabouts. Explaining his first strategy to Trainer A, he stated that the mysterious woman, being an examiner, was likely heading to the final examination location from the original work, a place he felt confident he could reach. He then outlined a second method, finding other examiners, and asking them for the location of the second examination site, noting this was a common narrative device in the original story. He continued, reasoning that since the mysterious woman was an examiner, she would have already completed her own examination, implying that the examination location was already somewhat fixed. Trainer A, munching on a snack, acknowledged his logic, confirming that if the location was indeed fixed, they could certainly pinpoint it. She then inquired about the drawbacks of his plan, suggesting that finding other examiners would be time-consuming, and a more serious problem loomed. She illustrated her point with a vivid image. Encountering an examiner would, in all likelihood, lead to a high-stakes battle. The swordsman conceded, explaining that while he wouldn't participate in their examination, he would demand they reveal the location of the next examination site. He elaborated that, within the game's actual mechanics, if the protagonist defeats an examiner, they are granted the knowledge of the subsequent examination's whereabouts. He then suggested they defer further discussion on the matter. Trainer A confirmed that the path forward would only open upon defeating an examiner. She then hesitantly asked if he would consider her opinion, which she admitted was quite troublesome. He reiterated that they could discuss it later. 5 minutes later, the swordsman observed a female warrior, spear at the ready, already having activated a significant portion of her power. He found her irritating. He realized that the power she had activated was a preparation for a counterattack. To his astonishment, the examiner vanished, only to reappear from behind him, launching a swift, surprise assault. He cursed her audacity. He unleashed a rapid, powerful assault, his blade striking with incredible force. Yet, the examiner, Warrior B, met each blow with her spear, deflecting the attacks with a blinding speed that sent sparks flying in every direction. The force of her defense sent him sprawling to the ground, his attack repelled. Standing over him, Warrior B observed that he had applied both armor enhancement and impact mitigation, then questioned if his intent was solely to attack her. She further remarked that he was well-trained, but noted that examinees who reached his level typically did not behave in such a manner. She clarified that she was an examiner, not a threat, and that he could still avoid her examination if he wished. He looked up at her, a hint of surprise on his face, as she then challenged him, asking if he truly had the will to proceed. A young woman with dark hair, her eyes obscured by a star-like effect, looked on with a distressed expression as she called out to her sister, who stood beside her with a serious gaze. She then faced a horde of skeletal figures emerging from the shadows, their empty eye sockets fixed upon her. With a determined stance, she declared that they should prepare themselves. As the skeletal minions swarmed, she fought fiercely, her movements a blur amidst the chaos. Despite her efforts, the sheer number of foes seemed to overwhelm her, and she let out a desperate scream. Suddenly, a swordsman with spiky light hair appeared, urging her to leave the fight tam. Meanwhile, above them, another woman with light hair floated, preparing to unleash a powerful attack. The embattled woman, looking down, apologized to the swordsman. Even as she fought, surrounded by explosive energy attacks, the floating woman unleashed a barrage of her own, her power radiating outwards. The battle raged on, a maelstrom of steel and magic against the relentless skeletal tide. Despite their combined efforts, she found herself increasingly overwhelmed, her screams echoing through the fray. Her sister, watching from a distance, cried out her name in anguish, unable to intervene. She pleaded with her sister to finish the struggle, apologizing for her own tardiness. The other woman, tears streaming down her face, looked utterly broken by the weight of the battle. In a different time, the swordsman stood before an armored woman with dark hair tied in a high ponytail, asking if he might pose a question before they began their trial. She responded with a slight smile, noting that he truly enjoyed asking questions. As the trial began, the swordsman found himself facing the armored warrior. He admitted his terror, then asked her what question she had. He continued, expressing his desire to undertake all the trials, and inquired if she knew the whereabouts of the other examiners. Meanwhile, an observer with glasses noted his spirited demeanor. The swordsman then speculated that knowing the location of the second-floor examiner would lead him to the Book of the Wise. The armored warrior thanked him for his answer, then posed her own condition. She would reveal the information only if he could land a single strike upon her with his crimson, feather-red jewel. She warned him that she would not hold back, even if he was her master, and urged him to prepare. He acknowledged her request, readying himself. As the armored warrior stood ready, he activated his skills, thought acceleration, and leg strength enhancement. He realized the trial's condition was merely to land a single blow, implying that overwhelming offensive power was not required. He further deduced that the trial was, therefore, specialized for speed, and that the feeling of inevitability he sensed was likely an inherent part of its design. His eyes widened slightly as he pondered the word inevitable, a flicker of doubt or realization crossing his mind. Meanwhile, the female observer, Examiner A, commented that it would be unwise to launch such a sudden attack, suggesting they should consider the possibility of a counterattack. She then added that she agreed with the master's opinion. The swordsman, still holding his great sword, listened intently. He then prepared his great sword, which began to crackle with dark, volatile energy, indicating a powerful ability was about to be unleashed. The examiner questioned why he was using such a skill, asking if he wasn't coming. He apologized, explaining that he needed a little more time to prepare. The armored warrior, however, declared him useless, noting that he was much slower than she had anticipated. With a powerful swing, the armored warrior brought her spear down, creating a wide arc of attack. He observed the immense range and weight of her weapon, realizing that even with his skills, he could not easily evade such a heavy, sweeping blow. He continued to evade Warrior B's relentless assault, noting that she offered no opening for a counterattack. He wondered if she was employing an enhancement skill, as her continuous strikes seemed to defy normal limits. Warrior B, observing his movements, remarked on his impressive leg strength. He mused that while her great sword might be easy to wield, its wide arcs made it incredibly difficult to evade. As his sweat increased, he pondered his next move. Meanwhile, Warrior B pressed her attack, sensing a slight decrease in his sword's speed. Yet, he realized his attack speed was not diminishing. Instead, something else was occurring. He questioned if she had activated another enhancement skill, a growing sense of unease settling over him. He grunted, reacting to her continued pressure. The swordsman's unease deepened as he understood the truth. He was not slowing down, but rather she was accelerating. He briefly considered using A to impede her speed, but quickly dismissed the idea, realizing he needed to further enhance his own physical capabilities. With this new resolve, the two combatants continued their intense exchange of blows, a flurry of impacts erupting around them. The battle raged on as Warrior B swung her spear, creating a wide arc of energy that forced him to react swiftly. Despite his efforts, he was caught by an attack, a cry of surprise escaping his lips. The impact forced a grim realization. The more they clashed, the slower he became. He knew he had employed agility-enhancing skills, yet this outcome felt impossible. Warrior B watched him, her expression unwavering. Warrior B then revealed her strategy, declaring with a determined expression that what she was truly taking from him was not his speed, but his agility. Elsewhere, Examiner A observed the ongoing trial, calmly sipping from a cup. A system notification confirmed that the target's elapsed time and cognitive ability had been significantly reduced, indicating the successful activation of a delay magic skill. Examiner_A, observing the unfolding battle, explained the skill. It was designed to halt an opponent's movement and consciousness, then relentlessly pursue them. She noted that while it was a release-type skill, swordsman_A, with his natural aptitude for long-range attacks, could not utilize it in its current form. Despite the debilitating effects, swordsman_A, struggling against the unseen forces, had meticulously crafted a unique combat style. He wove his techniques directly into his weapon, aiming to deliver a decisive blow to his opponent's own armament. However, Examiner_A continued her assessment, clarifying that the power transfer swordsman_A attempted would prove ineffective. The delay magic had successfully activated, and its overwhelming suppressive effect would render his opponent's weapon utterly defenseless. As the tutorial phase commenced, Examiner_A revealed that she had recovered her master skill, time acceleration, specifically to prevent the boss characters from being prematurely destroyed. She pondered if this level of challenge was perhaps too severe for a defensive main character. In a desperate, last-ditch effort, Swordsman_A activated a skill of his own. Warrior_B, momentarily caught off guard, found herself ensnared. Then, in an instant, Swordsman_A's form vanished completely, leaving only an empty space where he once stood. She observed this sudden disappearance, a faint smile playing on her lips as she remarked, "Splendid." Swordsman_A, now visibly exhausted and panting heavily, knelt on one knee. Warrior_B stood over him, her expression softening slightly as she apologized for the harsh and intense technique, acknowledging that his training was still insufficient to fully counter a hand, belonging to Warrior_B, extended forward, holding a small, intricately designed coin. She announced that this artifact served as proof of his successful completion of the trial, congratulating the adventurer on his well-earned victory. Warrior_B, now smiling warmly, observed that Swordsman_A had already regained his composure and breath, praising him as a truly professional adventurer. He, returning her smile, expressed his gratitude, assuring her there was no need for him to force himself to stand just yet. Swordsman then addressed Warrior_B, referring to her as Instructor Akabane, and requested that she fulfill her promise by revealing the location of the next examiner. He mused aloud that if she had foregone her defensive stance and employed an attack skill from the outset, he might not have emerged victorious. As Swordsman A, Warrior B, and Woman C stood ready, Examiner A, with a calm demeanor, declared the next phase of the trial was acceptable and that they should begin. Suddenly, a dark, unsettling spiritual power erupted, causing both Swordsman A and Warrior B to react with alarm. Warrior B noted that while the ominous aura was palpable, its source seemed to be at a considerable distance. Woman C, her expression serious, questioned if this power emanated from the direction of the second floor's examiner, while Swordsman A, his eyes wide with dread, could only utter a single horrified thought, "No way." A young girl with a flower in her hair, eating with chopsticks, cheerfully asked her sister if she wanted to become an adventurer. The narrative hinted at a looming tutorial and the protagonist's desire to avoid destroying a boss character, while also foreshadowing a tragic fate that would separate the two close sisters. Her sister, a girl with pigtails, looked surprised by the question. The first girl then inquired about the adventurer exam, to which her sister, still looking shocked, exclaimed, "When?" The flower-haired girl promptly replied, "Next month." She then complimented her sister's cooking, blushing as she declared it delicious and affirmed that her sister would definitely make a good wife. The flower-haired girl smiled warmly at the praise. However, she was then seen outside a traditional building, looking angry and demanding another helping, while also exclaiming, "It's too soon." Her sister, also outside, appeared distressed. The narration revealed that she had expected the adventurer qualification exam to be much further away, feeling it was arriving too quickly. Meanwhile, in a different time, a young woman with glasses, dressed in a school uniform, lay on a bed, engrossed in a book. Her thoughts were consumed by strategies, wondering what kind of expression she should make to deceive an examiner, while a small, blob-like spirit with glasses mirrored her confusion and distress. Her life was already filled with regret and resignation. The narrative then shifted to a series of historical accounts. A young girl, recognized as a swordsman of the Blind Gate at only 5 years old. Another woman inheriting the sword god Futsunamadama at 7 years old, and a third, who, upon reaching 10 years old, had won all matches against 100 different schools. She was then shown kneeling, having been granted the esteemed position of the next head of the Blind Gate family. Her eyes reflected a profound weariness as she internally confessed that it was all too much, and she felt no excitement or thrill whatsoever. Later, she walked through a bustling school hallway, still in her uniform, her mind consumed by the heavy pressure and expectations from her overly pampered and arrogant mother. Despite these burdens, she acknowledged that she had consistently achieved results far beyond what was expected of her. A young girl walking through the city mused about adventurers. She felt no particular sense of responsibility, yet believed she could achieve anything with a little determination. She recalled a special feature on adventurers, particularly the exploits of Kashiki Renka. Her fascination with adventurers had begun when she watched that very television special, a pivotal moment that ignited a spark within her. The special had showcased a girl her own age, a student, who had formed a party with adults and achieved magnificent results within a perilous dungeon, a feat that deeply impressed her. Her eyes widened, sparkling with a mixture of awe and fervent desire as the words adventurers, dungeons, echoed in her mind. With a radiant smile, she declared this was her true calling. The world beyond the portal, a realm of the unknown, teemed with mysterious creatures and inexplicable phenomena. A challenge adventurers embraced day and night. The scene shifted, revealing a memory from her youth. A younger version of herself, brimming with excitement, told her older sister that she was going to become an adventurer. Her sister, with a gentle smile, encouraged her to go forth. The young girl pumped her fist, her face alight with determination, proclaiming she would absolutely, definitely become an adventurer, and that her sister was very excited for her. Then, the moment she had long awaited arrived. The adventurer qualification exam began. The long-awaited exam plunged participants into immediate, brutal combat. In Imperial Year 1190, spring, within the dungeon city Sakura, on the first floor of the 27th dungeon Moonflower, a fierce battle raged. An armored warrior, woman_D, expertly wielded a spear against a goblin and a kobold, while another warrior, warrior_B, engaged a massive monster. Suddenly, her attention was drawn to a rapid movement, a blurred figure streaking past, leaving the girl in her school uniform with a look of utter surprise. She considered her options, speaking to the small, blob-like avatar. She mused that while the dungeon was always available for practice, it might be better to observe other examinees first. A sudden thought struck her, and she decided to watch the other participants' abilities. Elsewhere, a fierce battle raged. A swordsman and a mysterious woman fought against goblins and kobolds. The player, caught off guard, cried out as an arrow struck, realizing it was a fatal blow. He lamented that he would need time to recover, while the mysterious woman observed the chaos with a calm, almost detached expression. Back in her own thoughts, the protagonist considered the nature of the examinees, wondering if they were all like the figures she had just observed. She questioned if she should have paid more attention to the person who had been chasing them, perhaps to gauge their true strength. She then realized that the examiner was incredibly powerful. Her reflections were interrupted as the examiner, a distinguished man with glasses, addressed her. He confirmed she was ready to undertake the trial. He then explained the rules. The trial would begin, and if she could land a single blow on him within the second hall, it would be considered her victory. He stood ready, inviting her to begin the trial whenever she was prepared. With a burst of speed, she launched her attack, her movements so swift they created multiple afterimages, making it impossible to discern her true position. Yet, the examiner effortlessly blocked her, his hand raised in a gesture of dismissal. He declared her surrender, stating that she had not even managed to land a single strike. The examiner, surprised, admitted that she was far stronger than he had anticipated. She, in turn, looked at him with a questioning gaze, wondering if he had held back his true strength. She quickly interjected, asking him to wait. She asserted that she had indeed passed the trial and was now an adventurer. Internally, she pleaded for her dream, her aspiration, not to be taken away from her. With a bright smile, she thanked him and accepted the medal he offered, confidently stating that she always got what she wanted. The examiner, still somewhat taken aback by her prowess, inquired about her training. She explained that she trained at an old martial arts dojo at her family home. As she spoke, she looked down at the heavily damaged floor, a testament to her rigorous practice, and quietly wished for something that would truly excite her. Her thoughts of excitement were abruptly shattered as a massive, dark skeletal entity materialized with a guttural cry, causing the very ground to crack and shatter around it. The sudden appearance startled both her and Examiner A, while other adventurers, including Player A, Swordsman A, and Mysterious Woman A, looked on in shock alongside a man in a long coat. The creature's sudden manifestation was accompanied by a terrifying, drawn-out roar that echoed through the shattered space, its monstrous form dominating the immediate vicinity. As the monstrous entity lunged forward, its skeletal hand reaching out, the man in the long coat watched in horror. Protagonist A, her eyes wide with surprise, questioned if this terrifying being was also part of the examination. The man, his face contorted in alarm, cried out, demanding to know why such a sudden variant had appeared, stating that no such report had ever been made. Protagonist A, however, remained composed, noting that the situation was indeed unusual, while Examiner A observed her reaction. Despite the chaos, Protagonist A drew her sword, her expression resolute. The man in the long coat, now identified as an examiner, asked if she was calling for backup, then urged her to flee, suggesting they divide roles. She questioned if the creature was truly a sudden variant, stating that she knew it well, to which the examiner conceded its extreme danger. Before she could engage, the examiner seized her, pulling her back forcefully. He insisted they must flee, calling the creature a monster that preys on adventurers, emphasizing that if she understood the situation, retreat was their only option. His face contorted in a desperate plea, the examiner explained the gravity of the situation. He revealed that the creature possessed abnormalities exceeding even the final four guardians of weak dungeons, and the statistical results confirmed its overwhelming power. Still holding her, he emphasized that they were no match for such an opponent alone. He reiterated that this was precisely why he, as an examiner, was present. She listened intently, her eyes closed in thought, weighing his words. She pondered the futility of two people attempting to flee from such a powerful foe, concluding that it would be more efficient for one to hold the monster off, while the other called for allies. As she considered her options, a small, metallic ring slipped from her grasp, falling to the ground, just as the examiner began to add another point to his argument. She looked at the examiner, a faint smile playing on her lips, as he urgently implored her to survive, emphasizing that at least one person must make it out alive from this ordeal. The monstrous skeletal variant, a harbinger of death, loomed large, its form cloaked in tattered rags, wielding a massive scythe. Its presence was described as a sudden variant, and its weapon, a wind scythe, was said to be too fresh, almost too perfect in its destructive potential. Despite the overwhelming threat, the examiner, bowing deeply, pleaded with her to trust him with the aftermath, promising unequivocally that he would come to her aid. He urged her to hold on until then. With a confident, almost playful expression, she prepared herself, activating a powerful ability. Her legs glowed with an ethereal energy as she initiated leg strength enhancement, ready to face the challenge. She moved with incredible speed, dodging the skeletal monster's attack, a wide smile on her face. She internally acknowledged the creature, expressing gratitude for its appearance, as if it were a welcome opponent. In the world of Damacy, various methods exist to recover from injuries. Among them are recovery items, such as the healing potion, which activates the body's natural healing abilities. However, these recovery items often come with side effects. While they boost the body's natural healing power, they can also induce fatigue, making continuous use difficult, especially for high-ranking individuals. Beyond standard recovery items, there exists an even more valuable and potent remedy, the panacea. This miraculous potion can heal any wound or illness, surpassing human comprehension, but its rarity makes it incredibly difficult to obtain, often found only in the deepest parts of dungeons. The narrative then shifts to a discussion about the tutorial, where a mysterious woman explains that players without skills often rely on her for recovery. She warns that the tutorial's boss applies severe debuffs and deals heavy damage, making it crucial to understand recovery methods. Furthermore, it is revealed that even enemies possess recovery methods. Some can recover a certain amount of health with each attack, while others, like this sudden variant skeletal monster, possess a constantly active skill called soul reconstruction that allows them to regenerate. Moments later, a fierce battle erupts as a dark-haired warrior woman, bound by skeletal arms, unleashes a powerful, sweeping attack against a shadowy skeletal monster. Her movements a blur of speed and precision. She continues her relentless assault, her blade carving through the air with incredible force, forcing the skeletal monster to recoil under the barrage. The monster, though formidable, struggles to withstand her rapid strikes. As the monster attempts to counter, she deftly evades its reach, her body twisting midair before launching another swift, downward strike, demonstrating remarkable agility and control in combat. She observes her own movements, acknowledging that her current sensation of speed feels faster than usual. Despite this realization, she maintains her focus, continuing her assault with a flurry of precise, explosive strikes against the regenerating skeletal foe. She continued her relentless assault, but her attacks seemed to have little effect. The monster's regeneration was not a simple interruption. It was a fundamental aspect of its being. She moved with incredible speed, a blur across the battlefield, yet the foe persisted. Her rapid movements created streaks of light as she darted around the dark, skeletal form, striking with precision and force. Despite her efforts, the skeletal monster, reduced to a pile of dark energy and bone fragments, began to coalesce and reform itself once more. As the monster began to reform once more, she acknowledged its formidable regenerative abilities, realizing how difficult it would be to overcome. She pondered why she continued to fight, despite her own enhanced speed, questioning the purpose of her prolonged struggle. The skeletal monster let out a guttural roar, its empty eye sockets fixed on her. With a determined glint in her eyes, she declared her excitement to finally be free and to fight with all her might, her tension rising with the challenge. Suddenly, as she prepared for another strike, heavy chains erupted from the ground, snaking around her limbs and torso. Her katana clattered to the floor as she questioned the unexpected appearance of the bindings. She struggled against the chains, which bound her tightly, pulling her taut. A wave of realization washed over her. She had no strength, completely unable to move or resist. Observing the intricate chains, she realized that without her weapon, her contracted spirit could not be used. She reflected on her own limited understanding, acknowledging how vast and complex the world truly was. Suspended by the chains, she admitted her naivety, understanding that the monster had merely been waiting for the opportune moment. A strange, almost joyful feeling welled within her, despite her predicament. With her body completely immobilized, the skeletal monster loomed over her. She contemplated the possibility of defeat, thinking that it was better to retreat or despair than to be killed. Then, a faint voice echoed in her mind, urging her to just keep going if she still had the heart for it. She felt a profound regret, a silent apology to someone distant. Her short, fleeting life was closing, yet her destiny, too grand to simply end in death, remained unfinished. Her body, now a sudden variant, had been captured. The monster, a contracted spirit, had taken her in, using her as a new vessel. It vowed to kill all who opposed it, continuing its rampage until the day of its true fulfillment. As she remained trapped, a new figure emerged, a sword saint, fulfilling a role determined long ago. He shattered the very air around him, a powerful force breaking through the illusion of the world. The chains tightened, pulling her further into the monster's grasp. her face contorted in a silent scream of shock and pain. Still bound, she watched as the massive skeletal monster loomed over her, its power radiating outwards. Yet, a voice cut through the chaos, questioning the monster's actions, asking if it truly intended to harm such a fragile girl. The man, Ichiro Shimizu, then introduced himself to the other woman, explaining that he had heard about the first-floor examination and had come to participate as an examinee, just like her. He then declared his intention to activate the human spirit fusion form, a process that would forcibly link his master's communication and reflective actions, initiating a neural connection. He sought permission from his master to proceed. Meanwhile, the skeletal monster remained silent, its immense power radiating, yet showing no outward change despite the unfolding events. It simply waited. As the fusion completed, the bound woman looked up at Shimizu, pleading with him to break her chains immediately. He held the chain that bound her, but even as energy crackled around her, Woman C declared that while still shackled, she could not unleash her full strength. Moments later, the chains shattered around her, and Woman C, now seemingly transformed and empowered, broke free. Swordsman A moved quickly to catch her as she stumbled, asking if she could stand. Still held by him, she laughed lightly, admitting she had thought she was going to die, but observed that she appeared to have no external injuries. She then held a glowing orb, using it to confirm her status. There was no spiritual damage, only a slight fatigue, she reported. He watched her, a look of surprise on his face, realizing she was truly unharmed. As she looked at him, he reached into his pocket, explaining that he would give her something in case she needed it, urging her to use it to get away from their current location. She inquired about the item. He then presented a small, ornate bottle, clarifying that it was a healing activator designed to quickly restore her spiritual power. She gazed at the bottle, then back at him, noting his kindness in helping her, and even providing an adventurous item. She wondered if he was truly a good person, before questioning if such generosity was truly acceptable. With a wide smile, she defiantly declared that she could still fight. He looked away, stating that it was a bad idea, and that he wanted her to escape now. She flatly refused, prompting him to remind her that she had been on the verge of death. "I know," she retorted. She then bowed deeply, her eyes closed, expressing profound gratitude for his assistance in saving her. She, with a determined yet playful expression, asks if her current state is acceptable, winking as she prepares for action. She then turns to Swordsman A, her expression shifting to fierce determination, and declares they should cooperate to defeat the monster. She notes that despite nearly being killed, the creature shows no fear. In the background, the other observers watch intently, while Swordsman A looks on with a serious expression, a skull visible nearby. As she speaks, the skeletal monster unleashes another barrage of dark, heavy chains, forcing Swordsman A to react quickly. He realizes the incoming attack is likely more chains, and shouts a warning to evade, urging them to sharpen their senses. Swordsman A leaps into the air, deftly dodging the massive chains that whip around him. He observes the monster's relentless pursuit of Woman C, noting its apparent obsession with her. He internally curses the creature, calling it a Lullicon master. He lands, his gaze fixed on the monster, which continues to regenerate its chains, even as they are destroyed. He realizes the problem isn't just the visible chains, but the underlying reason for their continuous generation. He considers the need to recover stamina, confirm his movements, and then reload the chains. Within his mind, the spirit avatar and player A discuss the situation. The avatar remarks that the master's answer is quite good, while player A asks what they should do next. Meanwhile, Woman C, invigorated, exclaims that everything Swordsman has said was true and that she feels amazing. She declares that if they work together, they can defeat the monster, expressing a strong desire to annihilate the helped princess. She then suggests they change their approach and work together. Swordsman A, having processed his thoughts, agrees to her proposal. He asks her to lend him her power, warning her to be careful as he plans to sandwich the chains from both left and right. She quickly acknowledges his plan, her body already moving with incredible speed, dashing forward to execute their coordinated attack. As she moves, her foot, clad in a simple sandal, steps firmly, indicating her readiness and determination. Swordsman A watches her, a slight sound of surprise escaping him. Swordsman A addresses a masked figure, stating he has one thing to say before they proceed. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young woman with dark hair introduces herself with a bright smile, revealing her name to be Haruka and seeking confirmation. Back with the two men, the masked figure explains his hesitation, revealing that all he knows is a tragic end, leaving Swordsman A to ponder his words. He then turns to Haruka, urging her to unleash her true power, to which she responds with a quiet acknowledgement. With a determined expression, she affirms, calling out to Shimizu, ready to face whatever comes next. The path ahead promises a rewriting of destiny, leading to beyond. The narrative introduces Kanata, a popular heroine within the world of dungeon magia, known for her elegant appearance and formidable presence as a warrior maiden. She is the designated successor to a renowned sword school, embodying the attributes of a true hero. Further details emerge from a character popularity poll, revealing the current standing of key figures. Sword Arthur Caldwolf, the protagonist, secured the first position, followed by Rasboss in second, Chris Chanel, the Holy Maiden, in third, Kanata in fourth, and Ahoy, the main heroine, in fifth place. The focus then shifts to Ahoy, a warrior of the demigod type, mid-tier god class. Her specialized weapon is a legendary greatsword, passed down through the Ahoy family, known as the Heavenly Wing Slash. Kanata's combat prowess is further elaborated, showcasing her unique abilities. While her normal attack involves a single, powerful swing, her skill allows her to unleash hundreds of simultaneous strikes, dividing her attack across multiple targets with devastating efficiency. Despite her impressive skills, Kanata is shown dejected, lying on the ground. Her designated route is described as possessing an inherently high difficulty, further compounded by a severely restricted maximum level, making her path exceptionally challenging. She remains on the ground, overwhelmed by the nature of the mob enemies she faces. These foes are capable of launching multiple status-altering attacks, defeating allies in a single blow, unilaterally stealing items and levels, and even becoming invincible for a set duration. Furthermore, they can revive their fallen comrades every turn and relentlessly pursue their targets in organized groups. As Kanata lies defeated, the protagonist, Sword Arthur Caldwolf, valiantly fights alongside her, engaging a horde of skeletal warriors and a formidable, shadowy boss-like entity known as Sword Shura. She is shown in utter despair, as the very concept of her route and the underlying truth of the world are questioned. The narrative ponders whether these fundamental problems can ever be resolved, or if the entire scenario has already reached an abrupt and premature end. A hand gently holds a broken, star-shaped object, its fractured form symbolizing a shattered hope or a critical failure within the unfolding events. The protagonist, Sword Arthur Caldwolf, stands with Chris Chanel, first observing with surprise, then reacting with a shout of anger and frustration, exclaiming, "Oh you!" This outburst signals the imminent start of a new, challenging trial that demands his immediate attention. In the spring of Imperial Calendar 1190, just before Ichiro Shimizu was to rush to Rasbo's in the first floor of the 27th dungeon, Moon Cave, located in Sakura City, Sword Arthur Caldwolf found himself confronted. He was asked if he was the second-floor examiner, and then questioned if he was the one who had posed the initial inquiry. The man with glasses, identified as the examiner, warned that the path ahead was perilous for any examinee. Sword Arthur Caldwolf, seeking clarification, asked what had transpired. The examiner then inquired if he had successfully passed the Red Feather trial to become an examiner himself. The examiner explained that his true body had suddenly manifested in the waiting area, and the examinee, a girl, had helped him escape. He expressed his frustration of being powerless with his magic. He then desperately pleaded with Sword Arthur Caldwolf to save the girl who was now fighting alone. Sword Arthur Caldwolf recognized the description, realizing it was the long-haired girl he knew, his girl. Sword Arthur Caldwolf declared his intent to go and help, stating he would report to operations later. The examiner, visibly shocked, attempted to protest, arguing that the second-floor examiner was merely an examinee who had passed by chance, and that he, the current examiner, was far more trustworthy. The examiner, however, insisted that Sword Arthur Caldwolf must save her, placing his trust in the young man's true strength. He then extended his hand, offering a small, rectangular object. Sword Arthur Caldwolf looked at it, questioning its nature. He revealed the object to be a map of the battlefield, instructing Sword Arthur Caldwolf to bring back reinforcements. He urged him to endure until then. Sword Arthur Caldwolf accepted the task, confirming he would depart immediately. As he rushed forward, a voice, his master, advised him that if he knew the precise combat zone, he should activate body reinforcement just before engaging the enemies. He acknowledged the counsel, understanding the strategic importance. He reflected that the second-floor examiner's decision to send him was sound, believing a great destiny awaited him as he was drawn into this situation. Meanwhile, Kanata, engaged in a fierce battle against the skeletal monster, realized she could not simply wait for reinforcements, as it would take too long. She acknowledged the examiner's help in pulling her out of danger, but was glad she had encountered him. She continued her relentless assault, thinking that it was improper to send an injured person or an examinee into such peril. She understood that the examiner had taken a significant risk by entrusting her to Sword Arthur Caldwolf, fully aware of the danger. She resolved to overcome the first-floor trial, even if it meant her own demise, and vowed not to let Sword Arthur Caldwolf perish. Her initial plan, she realized, had been to assist him once he had passed his own trial. With a flurry of strikes, Kanata unleashed a powerful multi-hit attack against the skeletal monster, her determination unwavering. She mused internally that her master was perhaps a little clumsy. Kanata continues her fierce battle against the skeletal monster, deflecting its massive weapon with her own blade. She observes the monster's movements, noting its incredible speed and the residual images it leaves behind, realizing it's performing actions beyond what a normal creature could achieve. She continues her relentless defense, parrying the monster's sweeping attacks with precise movements. She acknowledges that her current strikes are ineffective against its hardened form, but she remains resolute, determined to protect someone. Meanwhile, Sword Arthur Caldwolf, observing the intense combat, internally confirms that the situation is unfolding according to his plan, though a flicker of doubt crosses his mind as he wonders if the monster's true strength might be even greater than he had anticipated. He then recalls a past conversation with Christianelle, who, in a vulnerable, unclothed state, had agreed to his request to take down that guy and do that thing, a pact he now intends to fulfill. As the monster presses its attack on Kanata, he continues his internal monologue, reflecting on the immense spiritual power he is drawing from Christianelle. He reminds himself that he must continue to consume this power until his technique is complete, urging caution to avoid being overwhelmed by its sheer volume. He further elaborates on the concept of body reinforcement as consuming spiritual power, illustrating it with a metaphor. A single rice ball represents the spiritual power needed for basic body reinforcement, while the vast amount of spiritual power required for his current, complex technique is like a mountain of rice balls. He acknowledges that he has already consumed all of his own spiritual power and is now in a state where he can only receive more from an external source. Kanata, still locked in combat, reaffirms her unwavering resolve to defeat the monster, stating that everything depends on its downfall. Sword Arthur Caldwolf, witnessing the monster's continued aggression, confidently asserts that his technique will surely defeat any formidable opponent. He acknowledges the inherent difficulty of completing such a complex technique while simultaneously engaged in battle, considering it an impossible feat under normal circumstances. Kanata, struggling against the monster's relentless onslaught, cries out in frustration, realizing she is in a desperate situation and needs to prepare a special move. Simultaneously, Sword Arthur Caldwolf, now actively engaged, unleashes a powerful attack, creating a massive explosion of energy. He activates his body reinforcement, causing his form to glow intensely with stored power. He explains that even with his own spiritual power at zero, the reinforcement he applied just before reaching that limit is still functioning. This type of reinforcement, he realizes, is not constantly active but rather an arbitrary activation type, which is its true advantage, allowing him to deliver a devastating blow. He mused that it would be fine if the technique was completed as it was, but then Kanata, standing beside him, asked if he was dissatisfied, calling him master. He seemed to be contemplating something. She then added that it was frustrating, as it seemed he had been fighting alone and it was troublesome to heal every time he got injured. The skeletal monster, still engulfed in flames, remained a formidable presence. He simply acknowledged her words. Her eyes widened as she exclaimed how amazing he was, remarking that it was no wonder he was called Shimizu-ken. He looked back at her, surprised by her sudden praise. She clarified that his strategy wasn't a big deal, but rather, he had a plan. She then began to rapidly explain that he was intentionally creating openings, allowing the enemy to attack him, and that he was regenerating his body on his own. She wondered why he maintained such a risky rhythm, finding it strange. As she spoke, Sword Arthur Caldwolf listened, his expression growing increasingly distressed. She continued, explaining that his regeneration ability was consuming a vast amount of spiritual power, and that he was deliberately taking hits to charge up his attacks, a strategy she found utterly incomprehensible. Finally, he roared at her to stop talking. Despite his outburst, the skeletal monster let out a guttural roar, and Kanata warned him that chains were coming their way. She then swiftly leaped into action, preparing to engage the foe. As she moved, Kanata explained that while the monster's movements were somewhat predictable, its operations were sluggish, requiring a moment to summon its attacks. She advised that they must always create distance with a preparatory movement. Meanwhile, the creature's technique, known as Sword Spiral, involved multiple evasive actions, but it seemed to have evolved, becoming heavier and slower than before. Observing the monster's new state, Kanata instructed Sword Arthur Caldwolf to fall back. He acknowledged her command, agreeing to retreat. As he prepared to withdraw, Kanata explained her strategy. She had been focusing her attacks on a single point, but now realized that focusing on its regeneration ability would be more effective. She then asked him how they would defeat it. He responded that they would crush it with overwhelming firepower, preventing it from regenerating. She then gave a decisive command, instructing him to quickly assist her in dismantling the monster. She continued her assault, observing the skeletal monster as it regenerated, noting a new pattern in its movements. Sword Arthur, standing beside her, questioned if the creature was truly an ally, given its evolving nature. The monster's regeneration was relentless, its bony form reforming. Even as more skeletal figures emerged from the shadows, their numbers swelling. As the horde grew, she exclaimed that her prediction had been accurate, though she lamented the dire situation, realizing they were now completely surrounded by the skeletal masses. He plunged into the fray, his large sword carving a path through the encroaching skeletal monsters, but their numbers seemed endless. Observing his struggle, she questioned if he intended to flee, a hint of challenge in her voice, which seemed to catch him off guard. He responded with a wide, confident grin, asserting his intent to utterly destroy the trash skeletons surrounding them. She remarked on his evil face, finding it surprisingly suitable, before he turned the conversation back to strategy, asking her for their next move. She then laid out her plan. She would engage the skeletal horde while he would unleash a powerful technique to target the main monster. She sought his agreement, asking for his opinion on the proposed tactic. He readily accepted her strategy, but then paused, revealing he had one more concern that weighed on his mind, leaving her with a look of surprise. With a renewed surge of determination, he charged towards the colossal monster, calling out to her to play with the creature, while she, in turn, engaged the swarming smaller skeletons with swift, precise attacks. The monster's attack struck him, proving far more dangerous than its previous assaults. He realized he needed to avoid a second evasion operation, understanding that his master possessed the ability to utilize his spiritual power without limit. He unleashed a powerful, sweeping attack, his blade cutting through the air with immense force, striking the shadowy form of the skeletal monster. As the battle raged, Kanata observed him, explaining that the monster's corrupted ability structure was a sudden mutation, warning that they could not afford to be careless against such an opponent. The skeletal monster, its eyes glowing with malevolence, seemed to declare its superiority, asserting that it was no mere commoner. He stood firm, his gaze fixed on the monstrous foe, reminding himself to tighten his guard and remain vigilant, never allowing carelessness to creep in. With a fierce roar, he charged into the horde, declaring his intent to fight with every ounce of his killing will. He knew strategic combat was impossible now, but as a gamer, he vowed to show them what he could do. He continued his relentless assault, shouting at the monstrous entity, challenging it directly. He accused that bastard who curses people and devours souls of trying to flee, vowing that he would never turn his back on a one-on-one fight. Despite his valiant efforts, the monster unleashed a devastating counterattack, its shadowy form striking him with immense force. He cried out as he was thrown back, the monster declaring its victory, having brought him down. Kanata watched him fall, her mind racing as she questioned the nature of the monster's defense, wondering if it possessed some form of pseudo-shield. Lying on the ground, he looked up at the towering monster, realizing it had clearly been trying to provoke him. He pondered the creature's true endurance, questioning if he had been manipulated into a reckless charge. Kanata knelt beside him, cradling his injured form. She continued to analyze the monster's unusual physiology, asking him where its eyes and optic nerves were located. She observed the skeletal monster, noting that its eyes, which had been crushed, were now regenerating. Kanata wondered if it was truly capable of full regeneration. Meanwhile, Sword Arthur, having recovered, stood before the monster. He acknowledged that their current attacks were insufficient to overcome its regeneration ability, concluding that they must prioritize stopping its regeneration before attempting to complete any other techniques. He continued, expressing his frustration at being forced to retreat from the enemy. He also worried about the burden it would place on her while he prepared. Despite his concerns, Sword Arthur launched a powerful attack, shattering parts of the monster's body. He declared that if it was merely a trick, it would pose no problem. Kanata and Ahoy watched the unfolding battle. As the monster recoiled, he turned to his companions, explaining that they needed to discern the true nature of its abilities. He suggested that if it was a skill, they should be able to counter it, but if it was a sudden mutation, they would need to adapt. He wondered if the examiner had anticipated this. The monster's true nature began to reveal itself. It was a sword origin sudden mutation corrupted body, capable of normal attack X6 and capture summon bind. Kanata noted that it seemed to have evolved beyond its previous form, now possessing even more bones. Ahoy questioned the cause of this sudden evolution. As Ahoy pondered, the monster's summoning ability manifested. Numerous smaller skeletal figures, each wielding a sword, began to appear around them. Ahoy observed that while individually they might not be strong, their sheer numbers were concerning. Kanata, seeing the overwhelming numbers, made her decision. With a determined expression, she declared it was time to act without hesitation, summoning multiple swords to float around her, ready for battle.